Okay, right. Is everybody good to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems fun.
A moment of truth.
Hello survivors. Hello survivors. Hello survivors. Hello survivors. Hello survivors. Hello survivors, and welcome to First Aid Spray.
This is episode 10 of the show.
20, 30, 40, 50, 75, 90, episode 100.
My name is less silly than yours. Die.
Gamer no grumbles.
Big shout out to the guy who uses a grenade as a melee weapon in the open F&B, by the way. Love that guy.
Every time I got a chance to play as Mark, it was all about help me.
It's an extremely vocal crow, by the way. It's like, I'm in the game. I'm the main character. You know.
What I'm hearing is that Capcom made a Dark Souls game.
I was gonna say that.
There was only one note written in the back, and it just said, Wesker is a wanker.
And then he was like, it was me all along. I was trying, but you guys are so fast and so strong, and I want to kiss you all. You know?
How many times did Sai save on her first run of Resident Evil 4 on Oculus?
Without the people to keep the sand out, it took over. Or whoever said, what do you mean the people to keep the sand out? There's not a crew in Vegas that goes around keeping the sand out of Vegas.
And as Sherman has said, it was written by 15-year-olds.
For 15-year-olds.
By 15-year-olds, for 15-year-olds.
I was going to say this question could have been more succinct if we'd said, hi everybody, what is your favourite Barry moment and why?
Oh, well, this is here literally so that woman could look in there, go, oh, boom, and then die, and then turn into a pickle. You know?
You've got nothing for me, and she goes, I've got the G virus. Oh, okay, that changes things. Here's a grapple gun. You'll use it for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Following the clue, Chris and his team, of people who will almost certainly die because it's Chris's team, head to the island where a new horror awaits them.
We've got really concise, so that way we don't have to, pick up a bit more than we can chew for. So let's discuss 22 years now in about half hour. Let's do that.
Nobody's planning on going to bed tonight, eh?
Hello survivors, and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is episode 100 of the show, and in this edition we'll be doing full-blown centennial celebrations. My name is Sai, and now I feel justified in coding the first episode as 001. Joining me on the panel this week, revealed 100 episodes later to be in fact the bucket of sand directing the next Resident Evil movie, it's Serial Box 64's Jordan Sugru.
Hi.
King, Duke, and Baron of the First Aid Spray server, and of our hearts, it's KDB.
Yes, you brought it back for the 100 episodes. Thank you, I love you.
It wouldn't be Resident Evil without ripping off aliens, and it wouldn't be First Aid Spray without him pointing it out. It's James, aka Moist Owlet.
We're the ultimate badasses.
And voted in high school as most likely to spend 250 plus hours talking about horror games on the internet, it's Firebutton Steve Valance.
Hi, everybody.
Every episode of First Aid Spray is recorded live on Discord, so join our server now to become part of our fantastic community that includes Resident Evil diehards and newbies. If you'd like, you can support this show via our merchandise store or over at patreon.com/FA Spraypod for as little as $1 a month. All of this and all of our social media links can be found at our website, faspraypod.com. It's a rather special episode. I feel like that should be very, very obvious right out of the gate. So we're not going to do any news or any housekeeping. We're just going to go right into it. This is going to be kind of a different episode, obviously. It's going to be part sort of pat on our back. We've done a bit of that over the years, and I think we're entitled to it every now and then. This is going to be, I think, quite an intense version of that. But we are going to be looking back retrospectively on 100 episodes of the podcast. We're also going to be looking back, of course, on Resident Evil, where it was when we started the show in November 2018 and where it is now. And it's also going to be part clip show, which was my original idea As The Simpsons once famously said, so it's come to this. I thought this will be nice because it'll be easy, right? We can relax a little bit. But it turns out it was a lot more work than I was expecting. So thank you to Ferdinand van der Haag and Choji Akamichi for scouring the 99 main show episodes. I know we've done a lot more than that, but just the main numbered episodes of the podcast, going through and giving me a bunch of timestamps of stuff. And I've gone through over the course of many, many evenings and grabbed all of those parts, most of those parts, I should say, and put them into the clip show, which is going to come out to be about 30 minutes long, and it's going to be dotted throughout the episode to break it up. It could have been a lot longer, frankly. I just kind of went at a certain point. I just want to use the funny stuff for the most part. There's lots of like nice sentimental bits and really clever conversation. But do you know what? The out of context funny stuff was the best bit. So look forward to more of that. Starting, of course, the intro to today's show, just a one-off special. That first little clip at the beginning is actually something that I wasn't sure I still had. But of course I did, because I'm me. Backed up on a hard drive is the original raw recording of episode 1. Before it was edited into episode 1. So that thing that you heard right at the beginning there was quite genuinely what happened just before we started the very first episode. Moment of truth, as I said. And yeah, here we are, 100 episodes later. So I guess the first point of call for this is, how are we feeling about 100 episodes, 6.5 plus years of podcasting, comparing it, again, where we were in the sort of tail end of 2018 to where we are now, as a show and person. We'll talk about Resident Evil later, but as a show and where we are, our personal journeys in that, because 6.5 years is a long stretch of time. Kelsey, how's it been for you? 100 episodes.
100 episodes is a massive undersell, let's be honest, because we've done so much more like when you say 100 episodes, it's like, oh, that's a nice round number. We have done a lot more than 100 pieces of content.
No, absolutely.
It is awesome. Like, I love that I've been a small part of it and stuff, and I wasn't there from day one, but I've now been a part of First Aid Spray longer than I wasn't. So I very much, it's kind of near and dear to me. But yeah, we've just done so much, and it's cool to have 100 episodes. It's weird when I think about everything that's happened in the last 5 years for Resident Evil. I think that I do like that we've constantly tried to do lots of different things as well. And some stuff might not have taken off, and some stuff has been, better, well received. But I just think we've been so fluid that entire time, but we've always had this backbone of the core show, the structure, the main backbone of First Aid Spray that's always been there. And it's the first time I think I've been a part of 100 of anything. So feeling very proud. And obviously this is a very positive evening, and I'm happy to kind of spotlight some stuff in the show today and kind of go on a bit of a like Michael Parkinson, this is your life thing for some of us. Because it feels like that's what it's going to be a little bit. But yeah, it's awesome. 100 episodes is great.
Yeah, very much so. I think you're right when you talk about like the backbone of First Aid Spray as the main show podcast. It's kind of funny because we're 100 episodes in, and whilst loads of stuff has changed about First Aid Spray as an overall brand, if you like, and again as people, which I do want to talk about, the actual show itself, this show, is near enough the same as it always ever was. We've changed the theme music once. We had the bite-sized discussion on the first sort of 10 episodes. That's became kind of superfluous, and I suppose looking at it now, A Moment of Relief is kind of like its own version of that, where it's like, this isn't a full thing, but this is just something we want to talk about, Resident Evil or otherwise. I guess that's kind of the successor to that. But other than that, the format and the structure and the vibe is largely the same. A pretty well structured but chill conversation that sometimes goes on for far too long. I've joked about it before, but I also have the original document that I made, which was just a bunch of bullet pointed notes about what would be ideal. I've said it before. We went, 75 minutes, maybe an hour, keep it nice and tight. And a couple months ago, we did 3 hours on Revelations 2 somehow. That just kind of got out of control just because we were having such a lovely time talking about every last part of that game. And the format has stayed the same. There have been bits and pieces along the way. And one of the bits that I want to get into at some point, so I might as well go here, one of the things for me in terms of pride is not just the number, but also I don't listen to a lot of podcasts these days. I just don't have the time for it like I used to when I was working and I could do it, or I was commuting and could do it. But the podcasts that I do listen to now, they always start with adverts, and adverts are good because that's how shows continue to exist. First Aid Spray's never had an advert on it, which is really cool and weird to think about, because when I started the show, it just seemed normal. I think we were probably on the cusp of it very much taking over and becoming normalized. But my podcast history to that point was podcasts didn't have ads outside of like sponsored reads. And we've never had that because we launched the Patreon, and everyone, and we'll talk about this again as we go through, has been very kind in supporting the show from that kind of angle. And it's allowed us to be able to be a free adless, for the most part, show. And that's something didn't really occur to me until this week. I've got other stuff that I want to say, but I don't want to take up the entire episode. James, 100 episodes. How's it been?
So I want to talk about some James lore before.
Yeah, totally.
So before the podcast, I'd streamed for 5 years on Twitch almost every day. I had affiliate. I had my ups and downs with it. I was offered many invites for collabs, business offers, sponsorships, and it made me very anti-group, if I could put that into a quote, for creative projects. Mostly because I'd personally experienced some pretty awful behavior from folks, and I think we've all in some way experienced that throughout the years, but especially within the gaming space. And I was a bit bewildered when I first started at First Aid Spray. But it became very obvious very quickly that I'd been looked after by the group, and particularly by you, Sai. My confidence has never been super high as a person, but like over the years, that confidence for ideas within FAS has always been listened to. And now First Aid Spray is kind of just like a part of me. It's like a part of my soul. If I had one, I'm ginger, okay? So I can't technically have one. But if I did, First Aid Spray would be a part of it. If that makes sense. Yeah, I'm very proud of what we've all achieved together since we've been here. Like from day one, when I sent in my voice for a file reading.
Yeah, episode 1.
Up to today, when we do stuff together, it like fills me with this high that I never would have expected in 2018. And I'll talk a bit more about it later on, but yeah, it's changed me as a person from 2018 to now in a very positive way.
That's good. I mean, I can attest to something very similar, and this will probably be something that I want to talk about in a different place, but yeah, similar kind of thing. What I was doing before First Aid Spray is solo YouTubing, doing video game reviews, as has been mentioned over the course of the show a few times. And that was because I got burned from doing group projects beforehand. And I was just like, no, sometimes people can be unreliable. It can be hard work trying to organise everyone. And that's not to say that it isn't hard work with First Aid Spray sometimes, but we make it work. That's the different thing. So I don't know, for whatever reason, it just felt like time to do something with a group. And that time is, now more than 6.5 years later and 100 episodes. Nothing I've ever done has reached 100 episodes, I don't think. And in First Aid Spray's case, this is going to be, and it already has been, a very cement. I've done it. I've already messed up my words. Cementical.
Restart.
Sentimental episode. I forgot what I was going to say. Completely screwed by my own brain there. Let's move on. Jordan, 100 episodes. You were there from episode 1. How are you feeling about it now, almost 7 years later?
Well, I mean, not to sort of, brag it up too much about how great the podcast is, but that's kind of grown to be a bit of a juggernaut. Like, it's been on a real journey. Obviously, we had only you and I had only sort of shortly worked together on a video for your channel for reviewing Croc, which we've also covered on First Aid Spray. And obviously that worked out sort of fantastic. That was so much fun. And then you approached me to sort of ask if, I wanted to be part of this podcast. And I think at the time, like, everyone has ideas about maybe starting a podcast, but actually kind of doing it, actually sitting down and recording it. And also, because I have tried to make these in the past, like, be happy with, like, how it comes out at the end and feeling like you're confident enough to put it out in the world. That's all really tough, but it all felt really easy when we were sort of sitting down to record that. I think a lot of that comes down to you, Si, just being able to sort of manage the podcast so well. I wouldn't be able to necessarily do something like that myself. It's so daunting, but you came into it sort of so naturally, and all of a sudden we had a schedule, we had things coming up, and I think what really kind of surprises me was that when we first started recording the podcast, I don't know if anybody else thought it, but you're naturally sort of thinking of the roadmap, and maybe sometimes getting worried about how far exactly something as specific as a Resident Evil podcast can go.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we were entering a really good period for Resident Evil, and obviously it's continued to be. Like, in terms of timing, it was kind of impeccable when the podcast kind of showed up. But there's always kind of that concern. It's like, oh, you don't want to necessarily front load your schedule too much. You don't want to kind of like tackle the heavy hitters too quickly or in too condensed a sort of space. And I think that's been like a real strength of the schedule, is that there's still some heavy hitters of the sort of like the mainline series that we haven't like entirely fully explored, and we're so many years into this, and I think that's, it's awesome. I've loved the fact that it's continued to sort of expand in a way that feels natural to what we actually want to cover. It's resulted in obviously 100 episodes, but that is obviously not covering everything about it. There's like so many other things that have sort of gone on in that time. But I'm incredibly grateful to have been a part of it since the beginning and a part of it throughout. And it is like watching a podcast baby grow up. It's been fantastic. I'm only really saying stuff that's kind of like sentimental at this point, but it has been so fun, and it's always so fun to come back to.
Thank you. It's lovely to hear. Steve, 100 episodes. You've been on all of them in some fashion.
Even if it's like sneaky guest cameos at the end. Just to keep the
even
numbers
if we
up.
had to sneak you in. Yeah, we did it. We did it.
Yeah, this is for what originally started basically as me and Si just talking Resident Evil on Twitter to the point that, shall we do a podcast, Si says. And I go, yeah, sure, let's not. Internally thinking every group project you've been part of, Steve, has collapsed. Be it like, Mansfield Artists Foundation, the Fire Button YouTube series and all the rest of it. And then this happens and it keeps going. This chemistry with everybody. And now we're here, 6.5 years later, 100 episodes in, God knows how many side projects, Memory Card Lane, A Moment of Relief. Now that's what I call survival horror. I can't use the name for something Your Own Adventure. But you know what I'm on about. You know exactly what I'm on about. It's been amazing to say that it's been mostly Resident Evil focused, even with the odd divergent tangents, like your Dino Crises, your Silent Hills, stuff like that.
It's still funny to me that we did an episode on Sonic the Hedgehog 2, frankly.
Exactly. Peak. Hashtag bring back backlog busting or whatever it was. But we're still
Backlog
here.
busting's great.
We're still here, and
Copyright
yes. Some folks have parted ways, but it's always been amicably. We've even interacted with God knows how many fans and other creators, and I still have a moment of pride going thinking of Sonny Bauer doing all these voiceover things, thinking, yeah, but he was on Resident Evil the beginning first. Flex, bullshit, absolute unit. It's crazy, and it all boiled down to me pestering Si on Twitter. So I'm taking some credit for that, everybody.
Hell yeah.
Mr. Imposter Syndrome. But yeah, no, I wouldn't change it for the world. And we've been through, like you said, basically the graceful upswing of Revelations 2 onwards, or RE7 onwards.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, big time.
Yeah. Basking a bit right now. Also, I enabled Resident Evil for James, so I'm forever proud of that too.
You enabler, you. I hate this franchise.
Was that burger? What's going on? Yeah, I want to talk about the Resident Evil stuff in a little while, obviously. Just to sort of close out this little bit, I've obviously just talked about the show, but yeah, personally for me, as I guess the tip of the spear for it as well, it's been kind of, it's not always been easy, but it's been surprisingly kind of just, it became a constant, I guess. And there was very little question in that most of the time. It was just like, that's just what we do. We just make this podcast now. And then like 6 Christmases passed. And for me, you know, when I think back to recording that very first episode, and I think, Steve, you said it was on a Skype call, episode 1. I think you're probably right, before we set up the Discord.
Wow.
Which is,
He's
exactly right. Skype. Remember Skype. But I remember the bed being sat in the bedroom of the house I was living in then. I've moved house twice since the start of the show. I've changed job 3 times, which you can sort of track throughout the show's history. Working in retail, I moved to another retail job. Obviously, then I had a brief stint in Steamforged Games, you know, via kind of an offer from show, and it didn't work out. I've never really talked about it too much on the show. It didn't work out. It's not a Steamforged issue. It was a, you know, just a fit of thing for me. It just didn't work for me. And then from there, you know, now I'm at What Culture, full-time content creating. I don't think it's hard to quantify how much First Aid Spray kind of influenced my career trajectory, but it's certainly in some fashion, right? It's been there that entire movement across my life, and of course, and I know I won't be the only one who says this on this episode. I was a very different person in 2018, quite literally, than I am now, having changed the gender, changed the pronouns twice, gone through an entire journey of self-discovery. And who I was then compared to who I am now. I don't know if it's noticeable over the course of the show, but I mean, I'm just a happier person, and I feel way more. I was always fairly comfortable, or at least, I mean, I made it feel like I was comfortable. Now this is just like, yeah, whatever. I'm just so comfortable in this position now, and maybe that's experience, maybe that's that part of my life, but it's crazy to think back in 2018 I was a literal completely different person. And I sometimes I don't want to get too deep and weird on this because this is a Resident Evil podcast and whatever, but sometimes there are moments in life where you look back and you go, thank you to that person for setting this up for me to pick up. You know, that person's gone now, but they gave me a lot of cool stuff. And First Aid Spray. First Aid Spray was one of them. So let's move into the first of the clip shows. These are mostly just like a collection of stuff from all over the place. But this first sort of 4 minutes or so is all from the early episodes. So you're going to hear a lot of weird stuff, a lot of voices from the past, by which I mean, of course, Adam, who was always just like a constant source of merriment and joy in the first few seasons. And there's so many clips in here that I just like, I heard and we completely forgot about. So, yeah, here we go.
I like the definition of movies is that's more or less than Rambo.
How minor are we talking?
As minor as you like.
As minor as you can get.
Okay.
Yeah.
How up are you on the old fake rumor that Akuma was going to be in Resident Evil 2?
Wow, Sai, you let a man die because you were too embarrassed to blow on your DS in public.
He was going to die anyway. I know how this goes. I've played this before.
This is the thing about RE1 Classic. When Barry drops the rope, I can never be bothered to wait, so that's why I never see it.
Aww.
I killed a few lickers by doors, and often when I went back through doors, I shit myself. I was like, oh no, I killed it.
But yeah, it's definitely the new one with the trench coat.
I suppose that's debatable. Like, it really just comes down to if he has the hat on, he doesn't. So the hat.
Oh yeah, the hat, right?
At that point, I was like, no, you can't be there. Run, there's murdering crows. They're everywhere.
I'm confident in saying that this is Damnation is the worst series of box arts I have seen so far.
And I'm confident to say that Damnation is the t-shirt I would wear.
Steve, are you okay? Name the staff members for me so I know you're okay.
No, you don't even have to ask him. Like, he just gets a knock on the head and he just starts naming them anyway.
Wow, I didn't know you guys had wrestling. Like, that's really funny from an American standpoint, because I just picture them like standing at a ring, like, how dare you?
But that doesn't take out a brick wall.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Don't question it.
You know what? You're right. It does.
6 of one, half a dozen the other. I lost my job because of RE4. But I can't say it wasn't worth it.
This is on the hour, every hour for 12 times at midnight, and then once at 1 a.m. As obviously that's how you guys know how a clock works. Anyway,
except the infection was much more mental and physical. Mentical. That's mental and physical as one.
And tentacles.
I only have 240 characters. I can't be wasting 6 on Illage.
Exactly.
Yatavio? Yatavio? I have no idea. It's some sort of ancient tree.
It sounds like a yogurt that's good for your digestive system.
And she comes, but straight off the bat, it's worth mentioning, she gets to slap a senator in the face, so that's pretty cool.
I love it. and again, much like our friend Facebook Steve here. I love that name.
I'm gonna just give this one to nobody and say that there are magazines and clips. There's no brand on the box.
Steve.
This is evil.
So. So yeah.
Fair enough. That certainly showed me.
See, Perry's ahead of the game, you see. As I said, Mr. X has now semi-been canonised, isn't it? Resistance.
Great canon.
And Ashford, what's his name?
His mother loved him so much. She named him, what's his name? I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, he has the most distinct silhouette of the entire game, doesn't he?
Are you saying if it was an episode of Who's That Pokemon, you'd get it straight away?
Yes.
I really love the setup of, it's an underground lair which we had never heard of before in Resident Evil. And
since. I don't care what they say, the Wesker kids are not canon. Doesn't matter how good it is, that's going to be a problem.
Solving their crimes with that little dog.
Licky the licker.
There are no Resident Evil movies.
I really wish that was the answer. Or the Veltro terrorists. They're just like, lol, kill people with fish.
Hey, careful with your goldfish there, it might kill you.
Because, and I quote, Chris can't cook worth a damn. And I was like, I love that. I bet he can't. Of course he can't. Chris Redfield can't cook. So, I guess the next thing I want to talk about then is looking back on those 100 episodes. What is everyone's sort of favourite moments and favourite memories of recording the show, or recording any show that we've done, or even not recording shows? We've just hanging out on the Discord was a whole other thing, I'm sure. Steve, I'm going to come to you first. What are your biggest highlights of the last nearly 7 years?
Oh, small topic then.
Just a little one.
Just a niche thing. All right, okay. First and foremost, okay. All right, you have no idea how hard it was to, be in the disaster zone of working during the pandemic, guys. Like, seriously. Not to get heavy for a second. This Discord pretty much saved my sanity. Like, hanging out with guys, playing Resistance and stuff. Obviously, that's what ancillary to the podcast. That's Place with the Community, which is also part of First Aid Spray. Without the community, I don't know how I would have coped. And I am forever grateful to that. When it comes to show creative stuff, honestly, most of it. Like, I always enjoy turning up. I always enjoy trying to do some research, writing notes, and then completely ignoring them. And then, it says a lot, really, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll get all prepared and then just tend to read it and then ad-lib it.
That's good.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now.
But it's been such a crazy journey, and creating such daft things as the quizzes, troblem solvers as they are known in the more legally distinct state. Every year highlight that quiz. 10 to 1. Not to toot our own horns, but it's either me or it's Si. Generally speaking, unless something dramatic happens, like I take an arrow to the knee. I don't know. The point is, it's all fun. And then we've seen the actual franchise bloom grow. Discourse, polite opinions, sometimes less polite opinions. Well, I'll tell you what we haven't had. We've not been divisive, we've not been picking fights with people, we've not been causing drama. And in the Resident Evil community, that's peak. And I'm glad that I'm glad that I am very proud of that fact, considering how hostile I could be and how negative I can be. Okay. I'm being called out by the chat now. Is Steve hosting the quiz this year, or is Steve winning the quiz this year? I'll have you know, I may well win.
You may well win,
but I'll do it to spite you. But yeah,
Sorry, Steve. I was just going to say the thing about the drama is great, but also I've basically had to go into the admin chat multiple times and be like, please everyone hold me back. Many times, unfortunately, and I think I do want to talk about. I'm going to talk about that kind of thing a little bit later. Actually, I was just going to save that for a little bit later. You're right about the pandemic thing, and it's crazy to think that we were only a year and a half, not even into the show's life when the pandemic hit, compared to where we are now, nearly 7 years in. So it's strange to think that it's that far out now, but it's wild. We just we were pretty comfortable at that point, and we'd kind of found our feet and found an audience. And I think, it was good to be there for people, but yeah, absolutely, those people were there for us as well. Just whether it was creating First Aid Pro stuff, and obviously, memorably, me. I really wish I'd have saved the VODs, me streaming through all the Resident Evil 2 board game nights of us playing Resistance or Among Us and all kinds of stuff. I think that might have been the year that we did Secret Santa, maybe the year after, but that was cool. We did that with a bunch of people on the server. Stuff like that's great. Let's go to Jordan. What's your any particular highlights or favorite moments over the course of 100+ episodes?
Well, thinking about like the the main podcast and the episodes that I've sort of been involved in, I think what sort of has stuck out to me, the running theme as I sort of look through and I say, oh yeah, I really love that, is that I really like when we get to kind of maybe deep dive either into a specific subject within Resident Evil as a series, or we start kind of diving into the more obscure parts or the less sort of travel parts. Obviously, the big hitter mainline entries, they're always huge episodes. They're always fantastic to do, a lot of fun. But I've also loved the fact that I've had opportunities to be able to do stuff like Resident Evil Gaiden, which I wouldn't have necessarily kind of like got around to just picking up and playing if it wasn't for the fact that it's like, oh, you know what, we're going to do a podcast episode on it, and then finding there's lots of things that maybe it doesn't quite get right, but I really appreciate what it was sort of trying, and like being able to kind of actually sort of get in there and try and figure out and sort of do a bit of a post-mortem on these kind of older games that are these spin-offs or these kind of more middling entries that, just try something different. Obviously, other highlights are the movies. I think the movies were always going to be very easy to cover because, yes, they're not Shakespeare, but they are a lot of fun to kind of point out the fact that they're not Shakespeare. So stuff like that, all the kind of just the way that we sort of have been able to sort of break down parts of Resident Evil, which I just wasn't expecting from the podcast series, but I love that we've been able to do it. I don't necessarily show up on things like the character studies and stuff like that, but being part of things like breaking down all of the outfits in a game or breaking down the soundtracks of the game, that's like really kind of fun to kind of jump into and contextualize either a game or the series as a whole and the kind of direction they go. And just, I don't know, I really like how nerdy we got about Resident Evil, over the course of all these years. And it didn't just have to be just straight up reviews of the games. It was kind of like, no, like, we are a Resident Evil podcast, let's just go all in on it and, go into sort of like the weird, funky little corners of the sort of the sphere of the media that it's kind of produced. And it surprised me just how much is out there. I mean, just about every kind of media has had some kind of Resident Evil, and I've learned about it mostly through podcasts that I've either, been listening to, as you guys have recorded it, or been part of. So I came into this, the show as a fan, and I had quite a few of my favorites, and I suppose I had my particular distinct flavor of Resident Evil that I liked, and it's been able to be broadened massively by all the things that we've covered. So I do like the more obscure stuff, and that's always kind of been fun that we've had that peppered right throughout the years.
Yeah, big time. You talk about the movies and stuff. One of my personal highlights of something that I've done on the show is my RE-verse rant, which you'll hear parts of, and various other rants in this episode. There is a rant, little sort of clip section coming up, don't you worry. Spawning a First Aid Spray meme off the back of that and stuff like that. But yes, the deep dives and sort of, pun unintended, the revelations that come with being able to finally play a piece of Resident Evil media that I hadn't done before or experience it. There weren't a huge amount of those. We've obviously done some really weird stuff like the comics, which I didn't have any experience with, but something like, I talked about this at the time, like Outbreak was like a big sort of black mark on my Resident Evil history that I'd never really delved into, and just talking about it was great, but also just hanging out and playing it together was great. And I've said it before, but us going through, is it Desperate Times? No, that's the RPD one. What's the final scenario of Outbreak 1?
Decisions.
Decisions, thank you. That was one of my favourite Resident Evil memories of playing that as a group, and kind of coming right down to the wire. That was fantastic. James, what are your highlights, your favourite moments of the last 100 episodes plus?
It's so hard to kind of think of one. So I similar to like Steve, like I think anytime we're all playing games together, like whether it be like with us, like as First Aid Spray staff, or with the community, or all of us all together, like 2020 brought a lot of troubles for everyone. Mm-hmm. And we all collectively kind of recognized it, and we tried to be there for one another as well. Like playing Among Us, where we maybe realized a bit too much about each other. Sorry, Steve. Like Resistance, which I didn't play Resistance much, but the value was there. People were playing it, and they were having fun, and we were, the community was growing because of it. Dead by Daylight as well. We played that for a bit. Yeah,
that's true.
And then I got fed up with the sweaties, so I stopped playing it. All the many other games that connected us as well. Like all of my favorite memories, there are so many more, but like a lot of my favorite memories have been from us all playing together. Like there's so many great moments from that time that are just core memories. From then and to now, it's so hard to narrow down. Like when we play those multiplayer games, like the most recent Outbreak podcast we did, we were having so much fun together playing that. Yeah. Like, even though it's, an over 20-year-old game, every time we set something up, it filled me with like so much joy. I never wanted it to end. And that kind of has carried on as well. Like I've continued to kind of keep playing those kind of cooperative games as well, which is something that I did used to play, but not as much. Mm-hmm. Like, so even like the community has not made me, like that you forced me into playing these games. No, the community has kind of drawn out a new love in me. In terms of when it comes to the show itself, God, the thing that kind of lights like a beacon is when every time we did a comic podcast.
Yeah, those were always fun.
Yeah,
every single one was just pure chaos that I loved. And I'm a chaos gremlin, so when chaos ensued, in our admin chat, guys, I'm the instigator. I will always, like, if there's chaos to be done, I will, enable it. Right. And yeah, those, like, the thing that the bloody penguin. Oh,
I know. That's what I'm thinking of.
The penguin was so funny and just like, yeah. And like, every time we would speak about the novels as well, and we'd always kind of, I'd always kind of bring up the point of you always have to have your kind of evil British guy. He's clearly evil because he's British. Yeah, there's so many moments like that where we've all drawn parallels, and I love that as well, because occasionally we have the same ideas, but every time we have a podcast, it always feels very fresh. So every time we have our moments, like, it's not like we're retreading ground any time. We're all, I'm very fortunate, and we're all very fortunate that we just, we all bounce off each other so well, but with also differing opinions on stuff, which is so rare in the gaming community. And we've had our I've had, I don't want to speak for other people, but I've had issues, but it's never been within kind of the first aid spray community. We've always managed to, whenever there's been a problem, we've always managed to fix it in some way. It's always been outside the community, but then we make it into a joke, so it's okay. But yeah, I could rant on more about, there are so many, and it's just kind of blind with kind of ideas of everything that's happened. But yeah, I suppose like one thing I would kind of highlight actually is so not many people know this, but when I was brought into First Aid Spray, like I didn't really know that I was going to come into First Aid Spray. Like, I didn't think it was going to be a thing, and I was so surprised that I was brought on. And I still remember that feeling. I know this kind of goes back to the previous question, but I still remember that feeling of complete, why would they pick me? I'm just a low-life gremlin man.
That's what
who likes Rebecca Chambers. We need that low-life gremlin man. Yeah,
again, on LinkedIn, James. When the application went out, Goblin man required.
It's in my tags. It's in my tags on LinkedIn. Yeah. It's not the pinnacle of my favorite moments, but there's just so many with different frequencies of. Yeah, it's. Yeah. Anyway, someone else take over.
I think you're right. Like, I really love, and both you and Jordan kind of mentioned, I really love being able to talk about stuff in depth, particularly about that other people haven't talked about so much. Like, we just did the deck building game. There's not a lot of coverage on that. And same thing with the books and the comics, which range from either just us kind of being incredulous, particularly in the comics, the various artwork choices or bizarre story twists about space and so on and so forth. Or the books, which largely was an experience of like, you know what, these are pretty good overall, and we had a really good time digging into it. Like, same when we did recently Rose Blank. Such a weird little thing that most people don't really know exists, and when it comes to Resident Evil. Was it all great? Not necessarily, but we had a really interesting time just picking it apart and talking about it. So yeah, big time. And also, I completely forgot about all the hours spent in DBD. The other one that came to mind when you were talking about that is I have a very specific memory of playing Fall Guys for a few weeks. It was a while we played Fall Guys with a few people on the server, and I would just lying horizontal on my sofa, just giggling playing Fall Guys. You could tell what era it was because we were all singing "Chrissy Wake Up." Do you remember when that was viral on TikTok? We were singing that and saying egg in a funny voice, and that's don't worry, that's going to come up later. Speaking of oh no, Kelsey, let's go to you first. Favorite moments and highlights from the last 100.
It's funny because I've kind of got a couple of perspectives to look at it, and the first one is before I forced my way onto the panel and I was just a listener. The thing was, I distinctly remember listening to Adam would have been on the episode as well, and you guys were all. It was Box Art Study 1, I think, and I was. This was before the pandemic, because it was early 2020. I think I discovered the show, or the end of 2019. And I was out skating and I was listening to Box Art Study, and I was like, I cannot believe these people are getting into this in-depth about the Box Art Study for these Resident Evil things. It is utterly ridiculous, and I f***ing love it. And this is amazing. No one else is doing this. And there was a time, and I think at that point there was quite a few episodes to catch up on, and I basically like listened to the backlog and fell in love with the show. And I remember tweeting the First Aid Spray account about the Resident Evil 2 board game and saying, "Hey guys, have you seen this? Look how cool this is!" And you were like, me thinking, "Oh, I'm introducing them to this," and you were like, "Well, yeah, funny you should mention that." And then I think it was then that's when I joined the Discord, and I just started to become embedded in everything. So, discovering the show at that time, and you have those. And this is why you fall in love with certain podcasts. You're like, these people get it. That I don't talk to people in my real life about Resident Evil box art. No one cares. No one is interested. I can talk to these people about it, and it's amazing. So as a listener, that was like a highlight in my discovery of the show, and realizing that, yes, these people are out there. These weirdos just like me are out there. You know, it's a bit of a cliche, but that's kind of how I felt. And then I got a couple of bullet points here for, like, in terms of the stuff we do on the show. So many of you have kind of just mentioned it, and I think it's funny because that speaks to the strength of some of the stuff we do, because it definitely resonates with lots of people. Things like, now that's what I call survival horror. Well, Jordan specifically said the way we get in depth about this stuff, the outfits, the music, and Tear Death Experience with like Jordan and James and you, Si, just like some of the funniest, like, you know, experiences of First Aid Spray, because they're so kind of like, they're so different to the main show, but it's so awesome that we just get to be that nerdy. And, you know, and we take it seriously. We're having a laugh, but I stand by the fact that kind of coverage on those weird things we do is the best you'll find out there. Nobody else does it. And everyone reviews the games and everyone reviews the movies. We do stuff that I think some other people might do. They don't do it as good as us. So I love all that weird stuff we do. For me, like personally, I think big episodes, obviously Resident Evil 2, the anniversary episode, that was just like a huge moment for me. That's one of those ones where it's like, and again, I'm going to sound utterly ridiculous, it's like my life has been leading to this, because I've loved this thing my whole life and never spoken about it for more than like 5 minutes with like a few people here and there. I've obsessed about it in certain ways, you know, in my darkened room, reading about it and thinking about it, or reading on old forums and stuff. I've never had an at-length conversation. And I was really unwell when we did that episode. I've mentioned before, when we did our 5-year look back, it was so important to me that I could do that episode. And it was just such a big moment for me. And it's probably my personal, like it has the sort of most personal impact for me of the things we've done. But then also, yeah, like I mentioned, now that's what I call survival horror. When we did the Resident Evil 3 one side, that was, you know, that gave me new context for a game that I hadn't shunned, but it shone a new light on it and made me give new respect to this game that had never really been my Resident Evil 3, if you like. And doing that soundtrack was my first step into, maybe I've kind of judged this game too harshly, and I absolutely loved going through the music of that game. It gave me an excuse to replay the game and really focus on it rather than being kind of blasé about it than I have in the past. So I loved doing that episode with you. And then obviously we did the actual Resident Evil 3 anniversary episode last year, I think, again, which took that to another level. So, and then the movie stuff, things like Alien Isolation, that's not a movie one, that's a game one. I loved that, but it's not Resident Evil, it's Alien. And then even when we do some of the movie stuff, so the Mortal Kombat one I loved, but I really, really loved the Halloween double whammy we did, because with things like Resident Evil 2, Alien, Halloween, you know, this kind of horror stuff, these are all these touchstones of my life and things that I've just loved so much that, like with Resident Evil 2, I've never been able to get that in depth with them, with other people. So doing those episodes is like a real gift for me, and just, yeah, absolutely love doing them. And they're episodes that I listen back to. And, you know, some people say, oh, I can't listen back to stuff that I do. Like, I do. I listen back to it. I love reliving those awesome conversations that we had, not because I enjoy listening to my own voice, but because I love hearing that moment, that, you know, those moments that we talked about, the story and, you know, the visuals and stuff, things that that just mean a lot to me. And so, yeah, doing that with you guys was always awesome. And, yeah, I think the Secret Santa thing, that's another thing I've got here. You mentioned Si, like I know we only did it once, but
I think so.
There was something so funny and special about that. And I got the hat from Lou, which I still wear to this day. And it's just like, it's so weird that we did all that. I barely knew any of you, but it meant a lot because I think that was right in the throes of the pandemic as well. And yeah, it was really, really cool. And then, the community coming together to replace James's Nintendo Switch is another moment that I think about a lot. And that's like, you know, it's not to like big us up. Oh, look at this great thing we did for James. It was like, when that happened, that was like a horrible thing for James to happen. And everyone has horrible things happen to them. But it just instantly, there was no question. People just turned around. And I think Choji was a big instigator as well, and making sure that stuff like that happened. So that was really cool. And then
bastard.
Yeah.
How dare he be nice?
How dare he? And then meeting up with everyone obviously was great. It was far too brief, but you know, that was a very special weekend, and that's where my toothache started. And despite the pain that I was going through, it was just like, it was just cool to step away, you know, and obviously step away from all of our responsibilities and hang out in that house and do a podcast and play games and, you know, have a takeaway and just go walking together. It was, it was really, really special. And I look forward to when we can do that again. So there's a million more moments, but those are, when I was making some bullet points, those are the things that really stick out for me.
I'm surprised that didn't come up sooner, to be fair, and you're right. I'm also somewhat surprised that it hasn't happened again, but also life has happened to all of us individually over the last bunch of years. Obviously, like, there's been lots of stuff going on for everyone, but it will not be the last. Before we move on to the next sort of selection of audio clips, just a real quick one from everyone. I was just musing on. Do you have a favourite running gag in this show? Like, we're not necessarily a bits podcast, but we do have a few that come up every now and then. Like, I think of something like one of the earliest ones being troblems. And it never come back up again, but it's always been, we've had it on our merch, it's still on our website, but there was such a moment. So I'd consider that kind of up there as it's not a running gag because it's never really come back up because there's no reason for it to, but that was like a moment. But in terms of, running gags for me, I'll just chuck one out now and then send it out to the rest. I was very proud of my Italian Barry gag that has also now become Russian Barry as of Revelations 2. That's a good one. James, trying to keep it a little bit brief. Favourite running gag? I think I have a feeling I know what yours probably is.
Egg.
That's good. I was just going to say James must talk about Alien, but
Blag. No, I'll let somebody else. I'll let somebody else do that. The night where I like, because I was this again being instigator. I made everybody aware of the Bleg seal and Jeremy Clarkson saying egg.
Yeah.
Like, it was so funny, and then we just kind of rolled them into one.
Yeah.
And it Bleg egg. It's so dumb.
It's just sometimes it's just you just need to make noises, and we often reference that stupid bloody video of the woman on the beach almost getting struck by lightning as well. That's another one.
Oh my god, baby, all right,
it's not a first. Yeah, it's not a first date spray thing, but it's just a thing that as a group, many of us will just say to each other to make each other laugh.
Yeah, it's our collective dislike of Steve Burnside.
Yep.
Praise the Moth.
Praise the Moth.
Also, you know, we're so like on board and everything, 100% every single time, unless it's NRE, then I am unnecessarily bullied.
Oh, that is one of my favourite episodes where for like 10 minutes. We rip on it, and then it passes to James, and he goes, "Oh, now."
Kelsey, any favourite running gags?
Yep. And the world will burn in an inferno of hate. Obviously, I think Steve gets into every episode possibly, and yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Jordan, any particular running gags for you?
Well, no troblems lives rent-free in my head. Like, the fact that I could hear that once, you know when you just have something and like you hear it once and then it just lodges in your brain and that's it. It's never gonna shake off. If you just have a quiet moment in a day where you're just not thinking about anything else, you might just have a random soundbite come in. That is that random soundbite. Just every now and then, could be months or weeks or even years, and then all of a sudden I'll just, in a quiet moment, just no problems. It's just there. The area of the one, it's like it's not really sort of like a running gag on the show, but it's a running gag within the show and behind the scenes of the show, is the fact that Steve has worked so hard to be on as many episodes as possible, if not all episodes, and there's always like there might be like scheduling issues happen and different things and stuff like that, and so when I see like admin chat and it's kind of like Steve's trying so hard to sort of get on the shows, I'm always like quietly sort of cheering him on, like that he'll find some way onto the show, even if he's basically doing a Revolver Ocelot sort of phone call at the end. That's always just noticed. That's the most consistent sort of running theme, is that if Steve isn't on an episode, you can always guarantee that he is somewhere like fighting some Dark Souls boss in real life. That's the only thing that could keep him away from the show.
Steve, any favourite running gags of the show?
See, this has evolved over time, because Rad Vickers for a brief moment was the talk du jour. The cool brother of posthumous Brad Vickers. But yeah, Krauser's soft serve. I'm pretty sure if any Resident Evil game from now until the end of time mentions some kind of confectionery, someone on the podcast is going to mention Krauser's soft serve. Okay? Obviously, as Kelsey's already pointed out, I will find some way to put the phrase, "and the world will burn in an inferno of hate." Resident Evil Zero's best/worst audio line. But no, for me, it's the fact that every so often I could be talking with anyone, not necessarily on this Discord, and I use the words Dario cheer.
Yes. That's not even a podcast meme.
That's not a podcast.
Meme.
That's a server meme. Like, that's how terrible it's getting, that we got in jokes from the names of emojis. Like that's something. But also the butchering of Sai reviews it and Calissa explains it all became Sai explains it. Yeah. It's a charm like that. Yeah. Exactly it. It's those, really.
Yeah.
They make it special for me. I still want to do "And the World Will Burn" and "Inferno of Hate" on a t-shirt, but I also need to figure out what the design should be.
Yeah, we'll get there one day. There's no
Let me know, Steve.
Train. There's no stopping the merch train. I think, Dario cheer, for a little more context, is just something that we loved the comic so much we just clipped it out, but it's from a comic that a friend and guest of the show, October Keegan, made at the time. I think she called it The Fifth Survivor, about Dario. The Raccoon City gets destroyed and Dario comes out of his little container thing and sticks his arms up in the air because he survived the outbreak in that little metal tub. And we just thought it was so funny. We clipped it for an emoji, and it's been at the top of the emoji list ever since. It is the single most used emoji on our server. We talked several times about doing like a server awards thing for a gag, and one of the sort of awards you want to give is best emoji of the year, and it will always go to Dario cheer. That is the reason why people have joked about doing an award ceremony, just so that we can celebrate that damn emoji. Another classic one from me is Talk, Steve's terrible internet provider in the early days. Facebook Steve as well, we've got to mention in the clip show. The chat also wants to point out Burger hates Resident Evil, which is always good. Leather Daddy is the nemesis. That's the one that I find the easiest. When I'm writing about Resident Evil for my day job and I'm like, how can I slide in a first aid spray reference to make me laugh? Leather Daddy is usually the one that's the easiest to do. Things quantified as Rambo as well is in there, which wasn't even part of a main episode. It was part of Off the Record. There's a bunch of really great ones. Yeah, good times. Speaking of Burger, I actually, unfortunately, Burger is at a convention this week, so they couldn't attend the podcast. However, they have sent in an audio clip, which I received today. So I'm going to pop that into the podcast now. And here's Burger's thoughts on 100 episodes of First Aid Spray. Grab some tissues.
Hey everybody, it's Burger for the 100th episode of the First Aid Spray podcast. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there for the live production. I'm currently in another state doing a convention show where I'm actually in the process of going to hunt down a Sherwin Matthews to go and grab him for a selfie. Wow, 100 episodes. I couldn't really quantify my general emotional state well over the past couple of days when I was trying to put this together, when I was trying to say this and to have this speech ready. I wrote through a couple drafts. Ultimately speaking, I've decided this morning to kind of come from the heart here. I love all of you so much. I love the team. I love the community. I think it's wonderful that we've had so many strong community members who have both grown their own lives and their families along with ours. I want to thank everybody for, excuse me, getting emotional here, trying not to cry in the middle of the Gen Con show floor. I wouldn't be who I am today without people in this community, without, I'm going to give the lovely mistress of the First Aid Spray podcast, Sai, a special shout out, who means a lot to me in terms of navigating my personhood as it is today. When we started this podcast, we both were at the very least one or two genders ago. And, Sai, having you to, chat with and talk through while I go through the process, and having the community there to support not only me, but both of us has been beautiful and a wonderful thing for me, especially. I want to also call out, James. James, who's one of the best friends I've ever had. I failed at my thought not to cry. James, I love you. You're one of my all-time favorite people. And I'm glad that you're my friend. Also, Steve and Steve, you're the best. There's not much that can be said about how good of a human being that you are. You are a delight every time I see you. You are a font of information, and gosh, I'm so much better for knowing you. Not many people really know this, but I got a chance to meet most of the team last year, and I flew to the UK and got to hang out with James for a few days, and Steve and Steve's family. And it was a wonderful experience. It's sometimes hard to quantify just how much cohesion there is, because we do the podcast and we're all across the world, across respective countries, and then to meet up in person and have that same vibe be there is magic, I think. I went to dinner with Sai, and it was the same thing. It was just like we were hanging out any other day in Discord, and that was itself really, really wonderful. I suppose I should also talk about some of my highlights of the past 100 episodes. I think my favorite episode has got to be the Thing podcast that we did when we talked about the two Thing movies and how they related, the original and then the prequel, and how they intersected. And leading up to that, watching those movies with Steve and James was an absolute delight. I also really love doing the Tear Death experiences. A lot of those I've done with Jordan and Kelsey. Kind of the only times I've done a lot with them. And those two guys are wonderful and amazing and really great to kind of banter with back and forth and debate costumes or who's better than what in what outfit. I'm excited for what there is to come. I hope that we can at least get another 100 episodes out of all of this. And I ultimately, I'm so glad. I thank all of you. I thank the team. I thank the community. I love you all. And I will see you all next time. Thank you. Bye.
A rather beautiful, touching message from Berger. Our other panelist from First Aid Spray, who unfortunately isn't here this evening, is, of course, the one and only and very busy Sherwin Matthews. But he did send over his kind regards, and he asked me to read a message for him. So I'll just get that ready here. Thanks, shitlords.
Before we begin, does anyone need the toilet?
No, God!
It's really funny you say he doesn't say stars. Of course he doesn't say stars. There's no stars in this game. So why is
but
he
it's
here?
his thing, sorry.
I know, but it makes no sense.
I don't really care much for Claire Redfield. I'm very much aware of who I'm talking to when I say that. This is probably my last podcast appearance, everyone.
Yeah, there's a big old B word is the reason why. Right. Has anyone got
bees? But it's
bees.
like
it gets
a lot
carried
of
by
bees.
bees. Yeah. Because those damn expensive German bees, right?
That's why they've all disappeared. They're all working in logistics.
Because it looks cool, said Albert to the rest of the people in the RJ lab.
Well, I mean, it follows the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Next person.
Yeah, kind of.
Get Claire a child. She needs to have a child to be in charge of.
Where's the emergency child? Except now she's like, no, everybody dies now because you're all below 130 IQ and you all
I
deserve
thought you were
to
going to say
die.
120 FPS then.
I almost
Your
went
frame
there.
rate is too low, you must die.
It's like, hey, Burger, you just want to go ahead and play a little bit of Resident Evil 5? Got that DLC. And
Oh, bro,
so-
yeah.
Bro, yeah, like totally.
My God, yeah, bro.
Yeah, bro.
Because before that, it was just nothing but, it was Chris and Wesker, and they're like fighting each other and having a little powwow, and maybe they'd kiss at the end, but they didn't.
Do you listen to the farting clowns while designing the basement scenario?
I listen to the Fighting Clowns on a daily basis. There's a reason why my Spotify typically tells me I'm the top 0.5% of Capcom's listeners every year.
I used to just have like a handful of bugs, and I used to walk into the house and I'd go, look, Mum, I've got bugs, and then she would scream.
I felt like I'd read a couple of sentences and suddenly, oh no, they've run away from the boss. Hang on, that's never an option. Can't run. I'm locked.
Yeah.
I'm locked in a room every time. I want to get out and I'm not allowed. Why is Steve Perry allowed to off?
Leave Simon alone.
Listen, he literally does the hacker I'm in twice in this show. I could not believe it.
Incredible.
But she pretty much just walks up and goes, "You murdered my husband! I'll never forgive you for that!" In a different voice. On each
Thought she was here for a second.
I'm Special Agent Numbnuts, and I've come here to kill some pickles.
Claire finds, I guess, a messenger bag, beats up a bunch of dogs with a bag, and then the bag disappears. Like, it's gone after that. I guess she just absorbed it into her inventory brain. Just like, stuff like that. He's like, what?
I just want to backtrack. I think the reason why he's so bitter about Chris is because Chris laughed at him. Just saying.
I was about to say the same thing. I was exactly about to say the same thing. It's all a revenge plot because he laughed at him.
Here's Dimitrescu, and we were like, oh, Dimitrescu is going to be the big bad guy, and oh no, I mean, some of us were like, oh no, but,
Yeah, but he doesn't really go for Angela, does he? He's goes straight for, indestructible adamantium twink. So it's not quite the same.
Oh my god! I was trying to be diplomatic, guys. But
Great Twitter name that is.
All I would say is, if you are having a roach problem, do not hire Claire Redfield's pest control, because your house will be more lead than brick by the time she's done with it.
The frozen one, TV dinner.
Alexia,
yeah.
Alexia's TV dinner.
TV dinner is great. I just want to point out when Steve says altered beast, he literally means the kind of BOWs that the internet would be really horny for if they saw them these days. It's literally muscle-bound god bodies with a bear head, a wolf head, a walrus head. One is a whale. There's a penguin with dinosaur wings that shows up. All right, let's talk.
That was a nice palate cleanser.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Absolute madness.
All right, let's talk about Resident Evil for a bit. Have you ever heard of Resident Evil? I hear it's pretty good. How are we feeling about the future of Resident Evil is the question that I have in front of me. Compared to where we were, again, in 2018 to now, and again, to give context, we'd had RE7, so things were looking pretty positive after a pretty down period in the series. And we were literally on the cusp of RE2 Remake, of course, because... two of our first 4 episodes, are about Remake 2, our sort of preview and our review of that episode. Some of our most listened to episodes of all time as well, of course. And yeah, from there, and we talked about this when we turned 5, but we've had countless pieces of media, Village 3 Remake, 4 Remake, RE-verse, Resistance. We have Requiem coming up on top of Survival Unit. We've had the Netflix series. We've had Infinite Darkness. We've had Welcome to Raccoon City, Death Island, Infinite Darkness, The Beginning, so on and so forth. Lots of media. So basically, yeah, how did we feel at the time and how do we feel about it now? Jordan, actually, I haven't really spoken to you about Requiem as well. So are you feeling pretty positive about that?
Yes, I still need to know more about it, and I'm a little peeved that we don't know more about it at this point, because I suppose we sort of felt that there might be more opportunities for us to see or learn more about it. But I think that, weirdly enough, because I think we talked about sort of the direction of... Well, we've talked about the direction of Resident Evil plenty of times on this podcast, Kelsa Priest, but... Even in the beginning, the very beginning, we kind of were starting the podcast at a real perfect point, as I've said before, that it was entering this new era. We didn't necessarily know to what extent it was going to be sort of successful. There's always going to be some popularity when you are remaking some of the most iconic games, not only of the series, but just of video games, period. But where you go from there, how you build from that and how you actually able to branch out. There was like a question of whether or not Resident Evil 7 was going to be a one-off, if it was going to be something that they try out and not necessarily sort of adopt. And there was a kind of a question of just how far down the line are they going to go with these sort of remakes? Are they going to sort of eclipse the sort of main series in terms of releases and, kind of get them into a bit of a troubling loop in terms of sort of what kind of media they can sort of produce. But honestly, it has been such a sort of like a healthy output, in my opinion. I think they've had to sort of, balance it, but I think it's also done a great job in being able to sort of round the player base, the support, the fan base, kind of bring in a lot of people who might have themselves sort of kind of dropped off from the series, around the time that you were having the likes of Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 that were kind of going more into sort of the action route and stuff. And so I'd really like to say that I think that it's been a tremendous period, and I don't necessarily see it slowing down. I think the only thing that's probably kind of troubling Resident Evil at the moment is that it really, really wants to branch out into certain sort of like online multiplayer spin-offs, and obviously there's been a few of those which just haven't quite hit the mark. And so I don't know exactly if they're ever going to sort of like realize exactly what they want in that sphere. I appreciate that they make the efforts to. But it's in weird contrast to what everything they're doing in sort of like the mainline series and that. Where it's going, I still feel like we are still in that period. But they've realized a lot of the things that we were talking about, 5 or 6 years ago, which is quite sort of justified to sort of see, I suppose, that we had an idea of where they wanted to go, even as far back as 2019. But yeah, I'm looking forward to what is around the corner, and what we might be seeing sort of like over the next 5 or 6 years. I have confidence in Capcom because I think they're listening to the fans in a way they're largely sort of catering in a way that's sort of I suppose not necessarily predictable but anticipated.
Yeah.
It's not say like there are other fan bases like say like Sonic, where there's very clearly sort of like camps of people who kind of want certain things out of it, and they don't always necessarily feel that that's catered to. There might be sort of gear shifts and changes that sort of happen with Sega as they handle that. I haven't necessarily felt that so much with Capcom. I've always kind of felt that even if you were having a bit of remake fatigue, don't you worry. There is going to be a new mainline game that is, going to be able to offer you something brand new. And so, yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a milquetoast of an answer that it's just like, yeah, it's all good and I'm looking forward to it. But genuinely, I'm very happy with Resident Evil at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I'd say it's a fair and an accurate answer because we've talked about it a bit before, and it's tricky. Not when you devote a podcast to a particular franchise and then talking about the company that makes it. It's very easy for us to sound like we're kind of kissing their ass or whatever. But we've talked about how video games are in a really strange, pretty awful place across the industry. There's lots of really terrible things happening in big companies with people being let go, mass layoffs, video games coming in routinely unsuccessfully in terms of monetary value, which has a massive knock-on effect on the teams and the studios and so on. And even sometimes when video games are a success, teams still get turfed out. But Capcom are one of the few companies that are, they're doing something right, clearly, because they keep coming in the green. They keep making money rather than having to go through these horrible decisions that we know of in terms of clearing out staff or cancelling projects and so on and so forth. When you talk about the remakes, obviously I have my mixed opinions and I've had my ups and downs with it over even the course of the show. It's been a very good thing for them recognising that, hey, we're a franchise that's about to hit 30 years next year. We need to find a way to bring new people in because it's hard to come into a franchise at 7, 8 and 9, which is obviously why they've tried to hide those numbers in the titles a little bit. I think more than just it being cute. It also means, hey, you don't necessarily need to know the full context. And again, the remakes contribute to this is a jumping in point. You want to play RE2? Here it is again, 3 and 4. Heck, I worry about it now as a podcast with 100 episodes. If people really want to start 101, I don't know, but I certainly wouldn't want to list to the first 50 of these because the quality on them is all over the place. I can tell you that now. Going back through them, not the quality of the conversation, the audio quality. I should point out, we've always been a good show, but yeah, I 100% back what you're saying, and what we've all said throughout this a little bit is that we started this at kind of the perfect sort of time to, I guess, hang on to the coattails of what Capcom were doing and cover all the stuff. And their willingness to try so much stuff meant we've always had something new to cover every year, pretty much, even if it wasn't always good, which has helped sort of bolster out that season of not just covering old things and being able to keep the show going. Kelsey, how are you feeling about the state of Resident Evil now as opposed to 6 or 7 years ago?
Honestly, very similar to what Jordan said. I think, and like you said when you led into this topic, Si, in 2018, we were coming off the back of RE7 and my feelings were going up. And I'm someone that I really liked RE7. It still wasn't my Resident Evil. They soft rebooted. There was no previous characters, apart from at the very end where they just completely changed the design of a character, and they wanted to go in a different path, and they hit reset after a very rough period. I guess Revelations 2 notwithstanding, but it was not considered the same.
Yeah.
And then the remakes came along, and I fully had re-embraced. Well, Remake 2 came along. I fully re-embraced my fandom and began to, as I say, seek out people online and content creators, and eventually there's to First Aid Spray and Resident Evil 3 and all that. And I think now it's been constantly going up, and I'm not like fully riding high up here. There's been some awesome moments in the last few years, and I recommend people listen to our, this is a bit of a love-in fest for our own show, this episode. We did do a 5 years of Resident Evil, like our in-depth discussion where we talked a lot more about the stuff in the past, so I don't want to repeat myself too much of what I said on there, but most of it has been incredibly positive. And like you said, with Capcom, Resident Evil and Capcom are extremely healthy right now. And I'm feeling positive, very positive with those teasers we've seen of Requiem. I think they've been awesome. And I think it does feel like they are very carefully and very competently managing that balance of action and horror, which they maybe have not done as well with in the past. And it feels like this is more like it's going to continue to be in line with the Resident Evil I'm a fan of. Even with Remake 4, which was far more action-led, it just felt... Yeah, it had the tone, and it had that thing that I love about Resident Evil. And and I do worry, you've mentioned the industry, game dev times terrify me, whatever, who knows if they've got anything in the pipeline, and if we're going to see it anytime soon, who knows. We've got the curse of the movies as well, because, I don't know if anybody saw this past week, but Kreger was being interviewed and he said, my film's going to be perfect. It's going to be the perfect Resident Evil adaptation. And I was like, mate, what are you doing? Like, you're already setting up a rod for your own back. He said he's not watched any of the other movies, and it's like, okay, fine, I can get on board with that and believe you when you say that. But he's like, yeah, mine's going to be perfect. I love the games, and I hope it is. From what I understand, he's a decent director, but I'm concerned, and there's still reasons to be concerned. But because Resident Evil is so healthy, and we've got this weird little mobile game, like it's been mentioned as well, I just think whether we like it or not, there's going to be so much stuff coming down the pipeline over the next 5, 6, 7 years or something. And it is funny you just mentioned again about how next year is the 30th anniversary, and whereas RE-verse was supposed to be the 25th anniversary celebration, and it just feels like that was like in a blink of an eye this has gone by. They delayed that for like 2 years as well, so it's been really, really strange, and we're all holding on hope that we get a proper... We got collections coming out our arse from all other franchises these days, so a Raccoon City collection has to come at some point. I pray to the Resident Evil gods, but it's in such an awesome... Of all the things I'm a fan of in gaming, Resident Evil has constantly been inconsistent, but it's still there, and it's on like this big rise of the past few years. I think you called it a silver age on that previous episode, Si, and it's true. That's where we are with Resident Evil, and it feels like any time something Resident Evil gets revealed or announced on the internet, everybody goes absolutely crazy, and it tells you the kind of the staying power, and that, as I've mentioned, they're balancing those tones, and it feels like they are planting those seeds to maybe let go of the past, push the series forward. Yes, they're doing the remakes, but sure, do the remakes, but the mainline games, we're getting new stuff. If there's going to be some legacy characters in there, fine, let them be, give them their swan songs and let us move on. And I know it's hard to let go of stuff from the past, but just it's fine. It's fine. We can all move on. And if we get the legacy collection, I can just play that as many times as I want. I've got the games on my old consoles, on my PC, but it would just be cool to have that as a nice little bow on that era of Resident Evil. But warmly positive. I'm maybe trying to play down my feelings a little bit. I'm sure it's going to be great moving forward. And because their track record for the past over half a decade has been incredibly solid. So what's there to be worried about, really?
Indeed. Steve, any thoughts and feelings on the last period of Resident Evil?
No, not really. I jest. It's kind of a paradox. It's because if it's a mainline entry or a remake, I'm generally thinking, right, this will probably be a very good game, very enjoyable. If it's anything else, generally speaking, it's still inside skepticism because we haven't had a Resident Evil spin-off really land since, truthfully, Revelations 2, right? Like, I can say how much I enjoyed the brief spate of us shooting each other in reverse, and I will take those Resistance memories with me wherever I go. But hand on heart, it's still not really cutting the mustard, is it? So, yeah, this survival unit stuff has a very big hill to climb. As much as I enjoyed Barbarian, I will wait until I see a movie trailer before I can give too much credence to Zach Kreger. And, if it's a game, like, I am stoked for Requiem. One, it's a setting I've wanted to go to for friggin' years. So, and two, she does look kind of fun.
Yeah.
Does little Miss FBI agent Ashcroft, It's going to be good. So, that, fine. I don't know how they're going to handle RE5 remake. I don't know how any other spin-off's going to go. Like, that's the worry. That's the issue there. Like, I can see them doing RE1 again and doing that fine. With the current tone of the other games, 5 is a landmine. 6 is just, good luck with that one, Capcom. Where's Resident Evil Cart, by the way? Sorry.
Right. Yeah. That's my Resident Evil deck building digital version.
Yeah.
Slay the Spire style,
roguelike
card builder.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just mash them all together. James, any thoughts on Resident Evil's growth over the last 6 or 7 years?
I don't know if my love for the franchise has wavered since 2018. Like, I came in very new to the community. I mean, at that point, I was 2 years into doing Let's Plays with Steve. And being new to a community, it came with pitfalls. None of it to do with the games or the content. And yeah, I've always been excited about what's going to come next. And like Jordan said earlier, I do have an element of trust in Capcom that hasn't once wavered in the 9 years that I've been involved in the franchise. And its fans. Like, I've wavered in terms of its community, but never to do with the games that they put out. And that's something from me, because I am always ready to criticize, and I have criticized Capcom, but my criticism hasn't overshadowed my love for what they put out. I've always been fair, and we've been incredibly spoiled by them in the past 8 years, and I recognize that as well. And like, on a more personal note, I always enjoy discovering new worlds, and like Steve and First Aid Spray, like, it allowed me to explore Resident Evil. So back at the start of 2019 when I joined, I was still feeling like an element of wonder with it all at that point. I was like, oh, what else is there to discover? Like a new shoe feeling in a way. And now I'm like, I'm equipped with all this knowledge and experience with the franchise over all this time that I spent with it. But that wonder hasn't abated like at all.
Good.
Like, I want more Resident Evil, and I trust them to keep giving us Resident Evil, and I trust them to do it in their own, however they want to do it. Because they're Capcom are trailblazers. As you folks said earlier, like, they, in a world where like all of these developers are being gobbled up by corporations and publishers, they're sticking by their guns, like, and going, no, we're making games for gamers, and we're doing it because we enjoy making games. Not, I mean, clearly they're a business as well, and that has to be recognized, right? But you can't really fault like that. You can't really fault their ethic of being gamers making games, because their games are always fun, even their misses.
Yeah.
And they might have some problems with performance with some of their most recent, but it's because the reason they do that is because they're just trying to stretch what they have. you know, and they're just trying to save that money and trying to stretch it. They know what's good, so they keep stretching it. Yeah, I'm hoping we do get a new Resident Evil engine at some point.
It's coming, isn't it? Yeah,
it is supposedly coming. We were expecting it to be with RE9, but that's not the case. However, RE Engine does work exceptionally well with isolated games like Resident Evil, because that's what it was made for. But I'm so excited about what's coming next for the RE Engine and whatever they're going to be working on next. Like, because man, seeing like the top thing that when I think of Capcom and Resident Evil and like kind of how they've improved, that first head turn of the zombie in the West hallway in Resident Evil 2 remake, and you see half its face come off. Like, I was just like, wow, this is incredible. I can't wait for another one of those in the future, and hopefully it's not going to be too far away.
You just said like something there, James, which really made me laugh, which was how you came in kind of full of wonderment of the series and not having a lot of experience with it. And yeah, in the last 6 or 7 years, you've read the comics, you've read the books, you've watched Biohazard the stage, God. For goodness sakes, you've watched the movies. Like, yeah, you have really been through it. So I'm glad that you still feel that way about it, because I feel like I just took this sort of doughy-eyed young lad and was like, all right, off we go then, and just pulled you through the hedgerow and spikes on you and.
I mean, I was dragged.
Come play RE-verse with us.
Yeah, I will not deny I was dragged through the hedgerows. However, I enjoyed every moment of it.
Excellent. So another one then in terms of Resident Evil, getting back to the show a little bit more, is I wanted to ask everyone if their opinions on anything in particular in Resident Evil have changed during the show's history. So, for example... I mean, I didn't think about this until we were talking about it, but I think early episodes of me, I was like, I don't know how I feel about 2 Remake. I kind of don't want this to exist, frankly. Remaking my favourite game, be playing with fire, and overall it worked out okay, despite my issues with little bits and pieces with it. And I warmed to it over time. And there have been examples of that. You know, I've talked about RE4 not being... We've talked about not my Resident Evil, but when it came out like that, and I've warmed to that over time, and certainly talking about it on the show helped. And Resident Evil 3... The original Resident Evil 3 was always kind of the bottom for me of the OG trilogy, not because it was bad or anything, and just something has to be at the bottom of it. But every time we talk about it, we've done 2 whole episodes on it, because we did the anniversary show, it starts kind of moving up. You know, it's a terrific game, and I think it's kind of invading some top spots for me. The more that I play it, the more we talk about it, the more I like it. And on the reverse of that, and we'll probably talk about this again down the line. I think it'll be due sort of a revision of this game, a revisit of it rather. I think I was too soft on Village. I think I was too kind to Village. But I'm going to put a pin in that until we get to it. Steve, any Resident Evil opinions changed for you over the course of First Aid Spray?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm about to get shot. The longer this has gone on, and it's mostly due to interacting with the community in the strangest possible way. My love for Remake 1 will always be consistent, but 96, it keeps getting stronger and stronger. Like,
nice.
Every time someone talks about Resident Evil 1, the original Resident Evil, my eyes light up. I go, has someone seen the light? Someone want to talk about the best
the
one?
ancient texts.
Yeah. And then it's like, God. The game keeps going up and up in my estimations, which is, you know, when everyone always thinks of Resident Evil 1 Remake, they think of it as the definitive version of that game. Generally speaking, most people do. And it's got my back up so much now that I'm beginning to shine off the other way and think, actually, Remake 1 wasn't that good. You know, even when we all know it really is. Yes. We really know it is. You know, it's drawing cover fire for Code Veronica, because Code Veronica doesn't get nowhere near as much flack as I used to give it. Like, so it's crazy to think that the 2 gems of generally the old heads of Resident Evil, CV and RE1R, are getting kind of flack. Whereas, yeah, the chat says, the franchise peaked at Gaiden. I have some virtues to say about Gaiden. You know, the music, for what it was kind of an attempt at ambience and fear. It had an interesting concept. Sort of. It had zombies with crowbars in it.
Hell
What more do you want? You know, the point is...
Super convincing, Steve.
Yeah. Someone's got to rep Shervin's corner. It's not here. But the point is, I love all of the games, mostly. Gun Survivor 2's Roach Mode can get in a bin. But the original, it just keeps going up and up in my estimation. And I have this wonderful community, my fellow podcasters, to blame for that one.
Jordan, any Resident Evil opinions for you change over the last 6 or 7 years?
Well, coming into the podcast, I had my sort of limited but kind of set feelings on how I sort of approach sort of Resident Evil. That I absolutely love Remake 1, and I was just way too into Resident Evil 4. I look back at our episodes, we had a 2-parter on the original, and I think even the remake was a pretty long episode. But I obviously sort of came into that. I absolutely loved Resident Evil 4, but obviously there is a whole series outside of Resident Evil 4, especially at that point. It was it stuck out, and there's plenty of people who enjoy it, but still recognize it as not quite their Resident Evil. And I think at the time, and for many years, I had my back up to that a little bit, just because I wanted to sort of believe that there was a certain degree that you could kind of change about the series to evolve without sort of losing its heart. And I'm not saying that it lost its heart in doing so, but I suppose I only had that fixed experience. But when Remake 4 came out, and seeing a whole new generation of people sort of playing that game and maybe finding issues with the original Resident Evil 4, I suddenly kind of realized, well, look, it's like my viewpoint on Resident Evil 4 was especially local to the 2000s, and that was going to sort of change. I'm still obviously very defensive of sort of what ultimately Remake builds its foundation upon, because it does owe so much to Resident Evil 4. But it was interesting for the shoe to be on the other foot and for me to kind of have that experience. Obviously, generally through having the experience of being on this podcast, I have found that my opinions haven't necessarily changed entirely, but they have certainly expanded. I have been able to grow a much greater appreciation for the series as a whole, and especially all of the times that it does sort of step outside of the norms to try something different. And I've always been kind of more open and receptive to that than I might have been previous to being on the podcast. If I was just trying to look at it for the sake of entertainment, I might want to look at the kind of more middling sort of parts of the franchise and kind of point and laugh and just say, oh, look, it's so weird and it doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. And try to actually sort of sit down and lay it all out and think, well, actually, no, if it doesn't work, why doesn't it work? But what was it really trying for and stuff? And heck, I've tried to kind of have that approach more as we have covered the media over the years, and heck, it even kind of extends to a certain degree to the live adaptations and adaptations and stuff, and trying to figure out exactly what I would even want from something that is a live action adaptation of Resident Evil. Because obviously watching the Anderson verse was ridiculous in many ways, but there was also lots of things to really enjoy and appreciate about that. But I always had this idea that it's if they just stay really faithful, to the games and the plots and stuff like that. And then I watched Welcome to Raccoon City, and it was kind of that in a sort of a monkey's paw kind of way. And then I was kind of yeah, but I don't know if I'm really enjoying watching this, because I know all this. And so at this point, it's I don't have any clue what I want from live action adaptation. Someday I'm hoping that it will just surprise me and something will come along and I'll suddenly realize, oh, that is actually what I'm after. But the fact that I have expanded that and tried to appreciate things a little bit more and appreciate the process, I've liked that part of myself sort of coming out through across the sort of the podcast and that. And so while I didn't have that many sort of fixed opinions before Resident Evil, the ones that I did have been challenged, and the ones that I didn't have obviously become actual opinion. Man, I really fluffed that up at the end.
You have context. There you go. You have better context.
Yes, contextualizing the series. But that is, that's pretty much it.
James, I mean, you obviously, for the most part, your Resident Evil fandom has been tracked by the show, as we've talked about before.
Yep.
But do you remember having any opinions that have changed over the course of that time?
My opinions have never changed.
They've
They've
always been perfect.
stayed stalwart and they're perfect. They are never wrong. No, actually, I have changed an opinion. So I think it's happened a few times,
You used
actually.
to like Barry.
No, I never liked Barry. No, if you go back to Steve and I's Let's Play in RE1, I've never liked that man.
It's okay, everybody. James hasn't played the original RE1 Jill campaign. I'll fix it.
I'll fix him. I can fix him. Okay, so RE2R released in 2019. It's 2019, right?
Yeah.
That came out. Steve and I played that game for a 24-hour stream on day one, right? Release. Like, we promised ourselves we would play both sides. I thought that game was one of the strongest showings of any Capcom game to date, and admittedly, my experience at that point was, I mean, I'd still played at that point. I still played like 7 of the games. But still, it was, some would call me a fake fan at that point. But yes, it looked spectacular. Excellent characterization. The horror was expertly handled. I struggled to think at the time what game in the genre could compete with it. And over the years, it's always been in my top 5 games, and it still is. And ironically, the game I'm going to mention next isn't, but it is a better game based purely on its content, and it's the original Resident Evil 2.
Nice.
I can't play it due to like my own restrictions. Like, I can't play that game. But it's not based. It's based purely on my own restrictions, not on the games. But it offers so much more than RE2R did. And like, it comes from a place of entitlement from me because we still got a great game. Like, there's no denying it was a good game with RE2R. I'm not saying it's a bad game, everybody, because it's not. But when you kind of put those two games up against one another, see that the decade they came out in, and seeing what they both had to offer, and seeing what one did. I mean, they both in a way did a lot for the gaming landscape. But I feel like Resident Evil 2, the original, did more. Mm-hmm. And that opinion has changed because, like, I liked Resident Evil 2, but Resident Evil 2, it just blew me away. Just playing that game. For starters, it's a game I could play, yeah, of course. But like, watching people play it, getting more information, and just going over all these years of just learning about it, its history. The games that have inspired it, that aren't just Resident Evil, that have been inspired by it, that aren't Resident Evil. My opinion is different, and it is a better game in my opinion. And more could, I would say, not say better game because that's hyperbole, but just say I think that more could have been done for RE2R. And I think it could have reached a higher peak and maybe even touched on the original Resident Evil 2. And like, now I'm asking for more. And again, that's the entitled gamer because we've had like so much. But yeah, more could have been done to hold it up, as I say, even higher.
I made a joke about your opinions being perfect, but I find no fault in that one. Surprising no one. Yes, I like this opinion. Kelsey, to round this bit off, have your opinions changed at all on Resident Evil? I know you mentioned RE3 yourself there earlier on, but that and or anything else?
Yeah, that's the obvious one, not to go over it. And I think I blame Sherwin for it. Because there was a couple of points, you know what he's like. There's a couple of points where he says stuff and you're just like, I can't argue with you. Why? Come to love Resident Evil 3, and because I'd always loved Code Veronica, and on the Code Veronica podcast, and I mentioned this before, he didn't tear the game down, but he made a very clear point about how the game just loses so much because it didn't have pre-rendered backgrounds, and it loses all that storytelling and stuff. And I was like, he's so right, isn't he? That show, and he's always bloody right. So that opinion over the course of the podcast has definitely changed. I came in, I'd have come in swinging for Code Veronica. What are you talking about? It's the original Resident Evil 3. It's the true Resident Evil 3, and that's just flipped on its head. I love Code Veronica still, but it's there's no question the OG RE3 is a better game in basically every single way. And I now prefer it as well, I would say. Steve, it's funny hearing Steve talk about Remake 1. I mean, my opinion's not changed there. Yes, I've always preferred the original. That was another favourite moment doing the RE1 Remake podcast. I think I upset a few people with that one, but Steve also converted me to the idea that Deadly Silence is the best way to play Resident Evil 1, and I think that's still an opinion that, it's an opinion that he sort of has enforced upon me, and through the notion of the podcast, and I cannot argue with it. It's changed. I feel like now I haven't played Resident Evil 1 in its sort of on a console for ages. I've played it on the DS multiple times in the past few years since I got it, and I struggled to find a reason to play it any other way until they release a proper console collection. And then, Resident Evil 4 is a game I've softened on. I came into the podcast not liking it at all, really. I mean, I've never really been that big of a fan of it. Again, not to upset people, but it's just I think I've always been massively critical of the controls, and I think even playing it today, it's got this weird imbalance between tank controls and the third person camera. It still throws me off. I think it's at the time I loved it, and then I feel like I was, people often use the comparison of the Simpsons movie in the cinemas, thinking that it was actually a funny film because you go to the cinema and everyone was laughing, and then actually you watch it again later and you're like, hang on, this isn't funny. And I feel like Resident Evil 4, I was caught up in the hype at the time, and then I played it again later. I was like, I don't like this at all. I've changed that opinion. I have a lot of time for the original Resident Evil 4, specifically since playing it on the Switch handheld with some headphones on. I think that added a whole new dynamic to it, which was quite interesting. So those are the main ones, really. I'm sure there's a few others, but it's always, I'll sort of touch on this when we round off, but everybody, and that's you folks, everybody says stuff and you're just like, oh yeah, didn't think about that, and you're right, and it's just completely shifted my worldview, and I'm happy for my worldview to be shifted at any point, and everybody has done that on various occasions on this show. So that's the power of First Aid Spray. We force you to to think certain ways through.
There's a lot propaganda. Of forcing. I'm coming to understand.
You will like these games that not everyone likes. Yeah. You'll play them the way that we play them. Capcom, please give us Outbreak 1 and 2.
I'm sorry. I feel like I'm making a long road to a short point, but it's just knackers. It's just crap.
It is crap. It's been a few episodes, but I think it's time for a Cyrant.
And unfortunately, the notes in this game are crappadoodle dandies. They're really bad.
And by those powers combined, I am not Captain Planet. I am Captain off.
You're not going to get any fun throwback stuff. You're not going to get Spencer Mansion. I'm heated already. We haven't even got to the good stuff yet.
I think Leon, even as a child playing this game, I was just like, why is this guy such an idiot?
Their character model, the difference between the two they've released so far is one of them wears skinny jeans and one of them wears cargo pants. That is literally it. It's unbelievable.
Everyone doesn't come together for Wesker, for Christ's sakes. And they come together for the guy that was in Raccoon City one time.
In short, the bosses, pretty much all of them. They're pretty much all terrible, and I hate them all. Steve, would you like to continue?
A great colleague of mine once said, the bosses. They're all terrible.
Well, I can tell you what I don't want, and that's the Hound Wolf Squad. So keep
don't
them
say that.
the away from this game, please.
He ruins the whole game for me.
No tear shed for when he passes away. Or a
I'm
fist
glad. It's the best. I wish he would have gone out as more of a chump.
You got a roadmap of DLC characters. Guess what? They're all the same fucking person.
And can someone describe to me the shape of the Queen Leech?
No.
That's right.
It's a meat tent, Steve.
It's an upset meat tent. It's just garbage. Like bin bags strapped together. What? For a series known for its inventive designs, we've got giant bug monsters and a blob. And I'm not even going to get started on the f***ing bat.
Everything in this game feels like it was built to annoy you. Like,
yes.
Several of the puzzles, like the box pushing puzzle in the water treatment facility, was so irritating. The different controls falls into this. The hook shot is like the mascot of this game, being just a pain in the arse.
Barry is a dangerous fool, and to top it all off, he brings Natalexia back home, and I'm surprised he's consistently relied upon by anybody.
At this point, we're just getting into the era of these are just big beasties. The Plagas, give it to a bat, it's got a caterpillar bum for some reason. I don't know. Just getting into nonsense.
Yeah. If I see another AI-generated, sad-looking Leon Kennedy, it'll be too goddamn soon. Can I just say?
The laser grid shows up twice in this movie.
It does, actually. It does, yeah.
Right, at the beginning. And then it claims another victim. I think it's got the highest kill count outside of Alice.
But I rage quit Umbrella Corps, that map. I got so off with it that I just had to I left the app, press the home button, start, boom, 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 down to delete, off you go. I'm not touching you ever again. I got so off with that map.
We don't need another set piece. I don't care about the Umbrella fun run. I don't care how many zombies you've got chasing after this giant tank. I don't care about Alice and her Mary Suzuki bike. I don't care about any of that.
Because Degeneration, Leon, you could just take Plank from Ed, Ed and Eddie and put a pair of curtains on it and get about there.
Yeah, there's stuff going on to keep you occupied.
Yes, there is. There is stuff going on. There's one thing that isn't going on is plot.
So I stopped it and it came up with the clock at the bottom and I was 50 minutes in. I was like, what? How am I 50 minutes in? Nothing has happened. Nothing has happened at all.
Because the guns feel like wet potatoes, right? And you also die like a wet potato. Yeah, there.
Something about potatoes in this episode. You guys have both compared this game to
we love potatoes. we love potatoes on this channel.
The thing that drew me out of the film more than anything was the T-virus cells that are shaped like little T's made out of Jello.
So adorable.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, not to go side run there, but
I agree.
The worst thing by a country mile, and the thing that actually did make me just put down the controller and play this game for at least a week, was when Ninja Wesker turns up.
What, and she's been knocked out and woken up a million. How does she not have like flipping football players concussion? She should have.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. I don't want to.
Oh, I've destroyed the entire world in the last few films and I don't really know where to go next, so I'm just going to seal everybody underwater.
that allows me to headcanon this into the same universe as the film. Basically, if it's a game I don't like in the Resident Evil canon, it's actually part of the movie's canon until anyone can prove otherwise, Steve.
Makes people go, oh, Umbrella's cloned Albert Wesker, or he's still alive, or there's a look-alike. So I would just like to thank Umbrella Corps for being so bad that Capcom will never mention this story thread again, because I definitely don't want that to come back.
You know, questions like how did the zombies get into the White House? What really happened in Panam's Dam? Why does Wilson seem so shifty? Who hired the animators for the show? All that kind of. These are questions that I have.
This is easily the thing I have ever played. And I tell you, I have played Umbrella Corps. I have played Operation Raccoon City. I have played Dark Side Chronicles and all its wobbly glory. This is the bottom. There is nothing below this. Okay, RE-verse is a masterclass compared to this.
That's my favourite. That's my favourite bit of the clip show, I have to say. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to that back every time. Good stuff. I think, you know, generally speaking, we've always prided ourselves on being quite a positive show and trying to find something fun or constructive to talk about everything. But now and then everyone likes to go on a rant, as is demonstrated. Something inspires us, and that is my next sort of point of conversation, is what you think the worst topic we ever covered, I mean, to date at least, is it a specific movie or a specific game? Basically, which thing you off the most, I think. Steve, what's the worst thing we covered?
I'll give you two guesses.
Is it starting gun and ending Survivor 2?
Actually, surprisingly, no. Okay, I have some minute bit of appreciation for Gun Survivor 2, and I don't have to play it ever again. But Infinite Darkness, the beginning, is still on my shelf, and I had to read that.
Yeah,
I had to consume that media, and it's just such bland milquetoast waste of time. Like as much as talking with everybody about these things and going over every bit of Resident Evil content in its minutiae is always a joy, genuinely a joy. Like that is something I'll never ever want to do again. Like if we do a retrospective on the comics, sure, but if you ask me to ask anything about Infinite Darkness, it will be no comment. It's just no, thank you, no more of this, please.
One of mine is actually Infinite Darkness, the show, not so much. I mean, the comic's bad, but it's over quickly. The show you have to commit 2 hours to, and I frankly don't remember anything about it, and I didn't like the week after we finished talking about it, because nothing happens in it. It's perhaps the most dire piece of media that we've covered. Because you're right, sometimes something's bad, but it's fun to talk about. Infinite Darkness, I remember, it was meant to be me, you, Steve, Kels, and James. And James was like, I'm not doing this because I just have nothing good to say. So it was just a 3-person podcast. We were all just like going, yes, there, I guess. It was just absolutely tragically bad. And if I never have to watch it again in my life, I'll die a happier person. James, what's the worst thing that you've had to cover for First Aid Spray?
Resident Evil, the final chapter.
Oh, God.
Like,
going right back.
Ironically, like, this is also a core memory for me. Steadily, as we got through all of these Anderson-verse movies, each consecutive, you can see our sanity leaving. Like, each consecutive podcast was becoming more and more chaotic. And I normally like chaos, but not. This is. Like, we're known for having a professional approach to our podcasts, which is all thanks to Size Skill here. But that final podcast, we all just went off. Like, my notes on the things we do, like, my notes when we do podcasts, they're indicative of how much I've enjoyed the subject. Like, if it's just short bullet-pointed lists, then I'm likely going to poo-poo all over it. And final chapter was nothing but 1 to 4 worded lines per bullet point, and it was so many of them. Like, we quickly just forgot we were in a First Aid Spray podcast, like, and we just ripped into this terrible movie. It was peak poop casting for me. That's the worst thing.
Yeah, definitely. I remember with that, back when we did the Anderson-verse stuff, and obviously when we have covered movies, we put 2 movies to an episode. For whatever reason, it's just the way it started, the way that it stayed. And because we had to talk about the final chapter and whatever the hell the name of the one is that preceded it, who knows and cares, frankly. We were so done after like an hour of talking about the first one that we just, yeah, you're right, we just went, who wants to say their piece on final chapter? And we all just ranted aimlessly about it for about 20 minutes and then just wrapped it up and called it a day. Like, it's just so bad, or it's just like, I just want this conversation to be done. Jordan,
I remember.
Oh, sorry.
I remember that we each one of us, we were trying so hard. We were trying so hard to like just draw some kind of blood from this stone.
Yeah.
Like, I specifically remember myself going, "Oh yeah, I mean the barrier looked good."
Yeah, that's true.
I think that was about it.
Yeah. Jordan, what's the worst topic that you've had to cover for First Aid Spray, do you think?
It's always going to be the live action adaptations. Even if you are trying to be sort of positive about them and try and kind of give them a chance, we all know that we're kind of going into those shows knowing that it's not going to hit the mark. and that's been its legacy for decades now. We obviously cover it as sort of part of our duty on the podcast, and we obviously still have fun with sort of discussing it. But it always comes back to the live action adaptations being sort of like the weakest part of sort of Resident Evil media that I've at least experienced. With all of the games, I really couldn't necessarily pick out anything that was like super bad, like, even sort of like, some of the more kind of like rougher light gun games and stuff like that. So I find something to it that I can at least appreciate. But live action, it's always just kind of like, you come into it with a sort of like a somber note, and it's like, here lies another failed live adaptation.
That's fair. Maybe that's why I feel the way I do about Gun Survivor 2, because I knew I was going to hate it. And also, as I said on the podcast, I spent £80 on a copy or whatever. And I haven't covered this on the show. But recently I got all my Resident Evil items out, just the games, to take a picture of everything. So it's like, you know what? I'm feeling like collecting ports again all of a sudden. And then I discovered my original copy of Gun Survivor 2 that I thought I already owned. And I had already apparently spent, I think it was £55 on. So I have spent over £100 on that terrible game now. So it goes high up the list of worst topics just for that, frankly. I don't need to spend over £100 on it to get bloody roach mode. Kels, what's your low light of topics?
It's a hat trick for Infinite Darkness.
Yeah.
I think it's telling about that clips section is, although there is a lot of us bitching about RE-verse, there was very little, maybe none, maybe one comment from the Infinite Darkness stuff, or one or two, and it's because both the TV show and the graphic novel, which I just cannot believe exists, are so dull, as Steve said. They are the most boring. And, we do what we can. Even as dull as they were, it's still fun to talk to you guys about it. And I think, I said earlier, I maintain that our coverage of weird stuff is the best stuff out there. I don't think anyone else has covered that graphic novel, so I think we got the exclusive scoop on that. And you think of all the Resident Evil stuff that exists, that's the thing that they produced, a lot of time, money. Well, I don't know if a lot of time went into it. I think it was probably written in about 2 hours, if that. A lot of money, and, people got paid a lot of money to produce that thing. And there are fan adaptations. We've done stuff, that is better than that graphic novel. And it's just, it's really painful that stuff exists. And the TV show is a funny one because, and I found I look at the TV show and I think some of the animation at times looked really realistic and high end. And it was like, that was me trying to be nice about it. But just generally it was nonsense. And those two, that combo of the TV show, I'm kind of glad it exists for this reason, because it's all well and good you get, Resident Evil Netflix didn't even get a second season, but this got a TV show and a spin-off graphic novel. Someone somewhere saw something in it. And I think I said on the episode that graphic novel was produced as a cash grab for people like us who paid money and bought it. So, they got their money somewhere. RE-verse is, at the time, it did feel like a slap in the face, as many of us said. Like, it was so weird what happened with that game. And I know there's lots of people that wrote it off straight away. And there was a few of us that was like, no, when it worked and when, we played the beta, we had a lot of fun with it. And it was like, it was just the biggest missed opportunity. I think a lot of us thought, this 25th anniversary celebration, that for some reason, even they seemed to try and play down as if, oh, no, it wasn't really supposed to be a proper game. It's just a mode we've done for you. There you go. And by the way, it's cancelled now and turned off. And, they delayed it for nearly 2 years and did nothing to it in that time, which I still just cannot believe, is the case. So that was a rough one. But, and there's a couple of games, we'd sort of joke and meme about, but I'm always kind of happy, like, even those really bad games, I'm sort of happy that they exist, because, games take a lot to make. And I mean, it's rough when you've got to pay what you've paid for it. But, that's actually another thing that the podcast changed my opinion on, because I used to think that Resident Evil 2 had the best box art of the entire franchise, but then of course Gun Survivor 2, we did Tier Death Experience, and there's no arguments there. I think it ranked pretty highly.
We all agreed.
Yeah. So Infinite Darkness, an infinitely dark point for the franchise.
Very good.
But fun. Go and listen to us talk about it. It's fun. It's fun nonetheless, I suppose.
Yes, I don't even know what to add to that, frankly. I mean, overall, the thing about RE-verse, I guess, is that some good came out of it for me, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the show or not, but I like RE-verse because if nothing else, it gave us Johnny Capcom as a meme, right? So I suppose it's got that going for it.
Absolutely.
So speaking of a similar thing then, the other thing that I want to talk about was back to reflecting on the show. Was there anything that anybody wished we did differently or more of or less of? You can be as honest as you want to be, or you can be as coy and professional as you want to be. I'm going to do some of those things in that order. I think, we've just talked about the movies and, we've covered some games twice. Stuff that we've covered in early seasons and then come back in the last sort of 15 or so episodes and covered a couple of games for the second time with potentially new panels, refreshed opinions and that sort of thing. And I do kind of wish we hadn't done the films in double bill episodes. I wish we'd given them a bit more space. That was a weird decision on my part that we just went with. So when we do revisit them, because we're probably going to revisit them because that first film will be turning 25 in a few years. You've probably got a little bit of a breather still to come, but that's got a big anniversary coming up. I think when we do them again, we will give them more space. I mentioned it before, the sort of first however many episodes, I think looking back on them now, the quality-wise is a bit all over. It's very inconsistent, if nothing else. We didn't really have a format. Microphones were different. Tech was different. I didn't really know what I was doing. And, so some of that's a shame to look back on now, because obviously if you were a new listener and you go back and listen to that, I do worry people will drop off when they hear how up and down the audio quality can be. And also that one episode where I accidentally left the basement theme playing in the background for 2 hours from RE2. So that exists and there's nothing I can do about it. It's just the way the recording is. Thank you, Spotify, for not ripping that episode away from us, I guess, because that's never coming back if that gets taken down. Please no one dob us in. And the other one, we talked about it earlier, about not starting drama, and I'm going to try and avoid starting drama, but I will say on a personal level, there are a few people and a few guests that now, in the harsh light of day, I really wish we hadn't worked with, to be brutally honest. A few people where some more of their character became apparent in the time following that we won't be working with again. And also, frankly, some people that they don't know it, but I had them on the show because I was trying to get over my own personal grudges and grievance with these people. And I just wish I hadn't bothered because it didn't help. And now I look at those episodes and go, I wish you weren't on this thing I made. But that's a real personal thing, and I'm going to leave you to sort of wonder about who that will be. Trust me, it'll be very easy to figure out who I'm talking about if you're paying attention. Kelsey, anything you wish we did differently?
Differently, not really. But I mean, I've kind of touched on... I agree with everything you said as well, by the way. But, I've said today, the music coverage, I want us to be doing more of that. I think we're so overdue, more now. That's what I call survivor horror. And
probably.
That's always maintained that it's some of my favourite stuff we do. So I want us to be doing more of that going forward. And, I've in the past and recently, I've batted ideas around behind the scenes that I hope, may come to fruition. I think, as I've mentioned, we have always been fluid. And everyone's ideas behind the scenes, I think, have been put into action at some point. We've tried stuff and done stuff, and because we wanted to try it, and even if other people didn't want to listen, it doesn't really matter. And we're really proud of that work. And we've always had the backbone of the main show, and I think that's not going to change. I think the structure of our main show is a thing that more people should be emulating. I struggle to listen to some podcasts out there, some very, very big shows, because people are just talking over each other. It's unlistenable. There's too many. We have panels with 5 people on, and it's perfectly listenable. You know,
Very
a lot of
long,
shows. yeah, but you know, and that's fine. But you get other panels out there with 5 or 6 people, and it's just they're pretty much unlistenable as far as I'm concerned. But so I think we do that very well. Now, I don't think, you know, you were quite harsh on the initial production value, if you like, but that doesn't really matter. Like I think as long as you can hear what's being said, which I think you always can, then that's fine. And
That's
you know,
fair.
we've got tidier and cleaner as we've gone forward, and that's fine. But I feel like, you know, this show, besides just doing more and branching out and diversifying, as you say, in terms of like, you know, the stuff we put out, I think we have. And I mean this, we have some of the most unspoiled, authentic voices in the Resident Evil community. And I think, you know, we want the podcast and the channel to grow, but we have never chased numbers in an inauthentic way. We would love more people to come and listen, but, you know, because we're passionate about what we do, and I'd love for the show to get more recognition, but we've done really well in kind of building this micro community, and that's what's popular these days. Everybody's building micro communities. And I just think that, that's a testament to what we've been doing, and there's people here that have been here for years, and we're still getting new people come in and join and listen to the show and join the server. And I think for the most part, lots of those people stick around, and because of what we do, you know, I don't want us to do anything different. I just want us to do more. Maybe, I suppose, and I've said this in the past, you know, behind the scenes and maybe even publicly, like, we can just let the reins off. We can just be a bit more, you know, free form, if you like. We've got the main show. I'm always suggesting, you know, ideas to say, let's just do this, let's just relax and do this. It doesn't need to be, and I know what this is, Si, because, you know, it's similar. I'm similar to you, and I think we're both from this production background where there is a format and things need to be done a certain way. And I think for the most part that has benefited the show, but there's no reason why we can't, you know, branch out in other ways and be a bit more free form, especially these days in content where, you know, we're dinosaurs. The lots of us, we're complete dinosaurs. The ways of doing stuff and the way people consume is a whole other conversation. But so I love what we do. I just want us to do more of it, and I think we're just going to keep pushing that authentic and sincere content, and not blag our way to views. Do you know what I mean? And I think let the content speak off its own merit. And and I think we've done well so far. And, you know, you talked about maybe things you'd like to do differently, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I think we've acknowledged that, and we have enough self-awareness, and, as I keep saying, authenticity, that I just think most people that take the time to listen to it, you know, recognize that, and that's why we've got the listeners that we have.
Yeah, that's good. James, anything you're reflective of about maybe doing slightly differently, or more of, or less of?
Yeah, we should be leaking everything we hear. We should put arrows and circles in every single thumbnail.
Don't you come for my day job?
Okay, we should put more banners and massive faces and thumbnails as well. Like, you know, and also just expand the foreheads for no reason. You know, we should also just start a drama with somebody. For no reason. Right. You know, just like, just go for somebody. Again,
Sonny Bauer, I'm calling you out now.
Nicest guy I can think of. Antagonist James strikes again. Okay, we're coming for you, Resident Evil community. You better be afraid.
Nice. But we got the wrestling promo into the episode. That's good.
You got the wrestling promo from the person who doesn't watch wrestling. In terms of what we can do, in terms of what we could do differently, in my opinion, or more of, or less of, I mean, I feel like we should just keep doing what we're doing, because, like Kel said, like, you know, I watch a lot of this content. You know, you watch content now, and it's not genuine. It's not authentic. It's literally, you can see it. It's like people haven't been lied to before. You know, that's what content creation is now. It's people who make up little kind of parasocial, even between content creator, even between content creators, these little parasocial situations that don't exist, and it is not genuine, and that kind of stuff always comes around. I do believe in karma, or they will just be forgotten. And I feel like, I don't think our platform will be, because we are so genuine and authentic. We have this core community. We have these core members who are fantastic and lovely people who recognize what we do. I wish we got together and did more games. But at the same time, we're all old and adults, and we have responsibilities. So you can wish for something, you can dream for something, and I'm definitely a dreamer. But it'll be nice to do community events and streams more. Because some of my favorite moments are just us just chilling and just having a great time, enjoying. Because guys, I don't know if everybody who's listening to this, I don't know if you know, but we're all great friends as well. What? And that's something that has grown over 7 to 8 years. Upwards of 7 to 8 years. That's very rare. And I'll go back to kind of, the authenticity of content creators. Any of the big people, guys, they're not friends. None of them are. They don't know each other, truly. They're business partners. And I think, we just keep doing what we're doing, being friends, being good to each other, being good to our community, being authentic, and not putting red arrows and circles in our thumbnails.
Not yet.
I'm feeling very called out right now.
No, I'm kidding. This is a meme meme that nobody else knows about.
That's right. This is an admin in it.
I guess that's what this episode is about. But just keep doing what we're doing, and more community events and streams when we can, if we can.
I would agree with that. People have asked, and we've also wanted to do it, I should point out, about us, being able to play the board games more together, because obviously it's a big part of our sort of formation and history. And we've sort of talked about what if we did D&D, whether that's Resident Evil universe or otherwise. But yeah, you're right, just trying to gather everyone together enough for the podcast can be tricky enough sometimes, that and everything else. But I would love to do more of that kind of thing. Steve, any regrets or things we could have done differently, you think?
I suffer with imposter syndrome. You will not believe the amount of, even on episode 70 odd, I'll message Si after most recordings and go, did I mess up? Was that all right? Is everything okay? But that has been a consistent thing from the off. And this is from the guy who probably has the worst mic quality out of the entire podcast team. So, someone who knows he's got that problem.
Steve, you don't have the worst mic quality. You have the best voice, and no mic can deal with it. That's what it is.
Yeah. I should get on to doing indie game dev and become very controversial figures talking about game preservation. Anyway.
I like it.
Realistically, my main regret is I feel like there have been times where there have been side projects I've wanted to do with the team, and we've given it our best shot, and I personally feel like I've let them down. I know that may or may not be the case, and people will probably say, no, Steve, but genuinely I feel like, for example, stuff like Memory Card Lane, I feel like I didn't give that the correct energy that it needed, and that's my bad. It's stuff like that where I go, let's do this thing, and then we go off half-cocked, and I kind of mess it up. That they're my biggest regrets. But when stuff does land, for example, Kelsey said earlier, now that's what I call survival horror. Dumb name. It took me an afternoon to figure it out, but it was amazing. Stuff like that. It warms my heart. So it's less regretful side projects that I should have thought more delicately about. And being a bit more professional, really. I appreciate that everyone really seems to like my stupidity, my unique level of chicanery to a podcast. But I can be a bit unprofessional, and I do admit that. I accept that. It probably isn't going to change.
Good. I don't want it to change. So you're fine. You're perfect the way you are, Steve. Jordan, any thoughts looking back on things that we could have done differently?
Well, I mean, overall on the podcast, naturally, I'd kind of want to feel like I'm inclined to, maybe kind of cringe and squirm at sort of like my older audio, and maybe kind of like listening to when we were sort of like first getting off the ground and getting used to recording podcasts, because it is tricky. It is especially tricky when you are not in the room with people and you're managing all of this stuff online. But I think we've done really well. It's kind of easy to sort of beep the horn, but it has been so easy. I got on with you guys like incredibly fast, I felt, and it meant that we could sort of gel a lot quicker, and that was great for our friendship. It was also great for the show as well, that it was able to feel so seamless and not really sort of awkward. I think we all have a certain degree of kind of maybe feeling self-conscious about our voice or our ability to kind of match that level of podcasting. But, for most of us, we were all kind of jumping into this at the same time, at the same kind of level. So we've all grown together, and that's all sort of fantastic. I really wouldn't change anything about that. Anything that I would say that I would sort of change, either sort of personally or sort of like about the show, is mainly just to do with kind of like any further expansion we have with the material and the content and the subject that we are covering. So, like, when I was coming to think of what we haven't covered, there's not a lot. We've touched on just about every corner of sort of Resident Evil and Resident Evil media. I suppose one of the few kind of like still uncharted waters, and it's one that doesn't really necessarily have much mileage, and it's quite obvious for why we haven't done it. I would love to dive in at some point into any kind of like physical sort of merchandise from over the years for Resident Evil. It's not like there's a lot out there, but it's had its sort of stretches and its eras, and like looking at sort of things like action figures and how they've changed over sort of the years and the availability of them and who's made them and all that kind of stuff. The occasional tie-ins to sort of like cosmetics for like console skins or controllers, or specifically shaped controllers that at some point I even did want to see if I could do some kind of like video review for the chainsaw controller. I didn't have it, and I still don't have it, because right as I had that idea come in, I looked on eBay and I could just see the prices for that controller just shooting up something wild and crazy, and it was like, okay, maybe that's not something that's viable. So understandably, we've not really kind of covered that kind of stuff, but I would certainly look forward to, if we ever kind of covered that kind of media. It is, say, one of those last few sort of specs which we haven't necessarily sort of talked about. And the only other thing, I suppose, is that I wish my one sort of like regret sort of in retrospect, and you're not going to think about this, especially when you're starting out on the podcast, because you don't know how long it's going to run. You don't know what you could be sort of covering in the future that would call back to it. But I wish I'd kind of kept a record of my predictions as well as the panel's predictions on each episode. I think they'd be very fun to kind of come back to. Thankfully, it's probably the easiest to be able to track that stuff down now, because so many platforms, including like YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, are now transcripting podcast episodes as they come up. So it's a lot easier to jump in and maybe see what people were saying at a certain time. But especially sort of reflecting on, all of these years that we've been podcasting, I suddenly just realized, wow, we have probably had loads of takes that would be interesting, if not a little bit funny, to kind of jump back and see what we were saying. I mean, I know that I definitely thought that Resident Evil 3 remake was going to be first person. So stuff like that would just be, fun to kind of go back to. And that's about it, apart from just to kind of address the point that Steve mentioned with regards to Memory Card Lane. Steve, you were fantastic on that show, and I had so much fun making that show. Seriously, it was some of the most fun that I had, not just on that show, but in the podcast in general. I appreciate that. Just making that stuff. It was a blast, and it was always so easy to kind of come together when which we were actually sat down. Scheduling, I think, maybe complicated things, and trying to get everybody to sort of line up on sort of schedules. But that was always great. So I won't hear a bad word about Steve with regards to Memory Card Lane. You're fantastic. And it was excellent. So
I need medical attention. yeah. No, I get it.
Where would I find leg? Just leg, not the leg, just leg.
Excellent. Move on to somebody else. Steve, I think.
Only this time, less pan flutes, more sickles.
Yeah, I mean, her relationship with Parker is like someone that works 8 cubicles down from you at the office.
And she exclaims, "I'm poisoned. There must be something I can use." And her next line is, "An AK-47.
Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely bonkers. I burst out laughing in my room.
To incriminate myself, I watched an illegal copy of it, and I was definitely high when I watched it as well because I was living in Bristol by myself.
I love that's the definition of high. I was in Bristol.
That's just where you go.
The 22nd through to the 28th. 6 days of fun for William Birkin, and most of that occurs on one night. You know, I'll take it.
Sorry, you're right. I have looked at the wrong thing. It was me. I was the one that was going to die.
You know, like they go airborne with that thing moments right after he says he's no superhero, but he does a superhero thing like that. And then...
It's a little humble brag. He knows what he's doing. He's trying to show off. Like, yeah, I'm not that cool. Watch this.
Check this out.
Yeah.
You've just like waxed us both so hard.
Oh, of course.
I was like, Sai and I were like neck and neck, and then there's Steve who's got like 10,000 points more than both of us together.
Yeah, we were playing our own game.
Oh yeah, by the way, you're gonna have to sacrifice your uncle. You know,
They'll have like a weird cryptic monologue that's like, "There is no more garlic in the fridge, but the zombies are all over Raccoon City. I am sad." When you beat a scenario, but that's really the only insight to their personality you get besides the ad-libs.
Well, for once, the original games weren't directed by Michael Bay like the 6th game went and did.
And then, of course, shortly thereafter, the greatest comic book panel of all time happens, where he uppercuts a hunter in the jaw and its eyes pop out of its head.
Nikolai is one of the supervisors.
That's all you need to know.
Exactly. Another mutant.
What? Chris, no!
Yes, this is from
my sweet baby boy.
I was happy with the visuals, other than the fact that Bruce's face in game looked nothing like
a human.
Towards the end, where they're both in the lift, there is one in particular shot where he's like profile on Bruce, and I was like, I'm not imagining this. His neck is freakishly long.
Don't pee your pants.
What?
And still, my boy Nikolai died, and I was very sad. And
you can support the show via our merchandise store or turn into a seal. Do that bit again.
So I've got a controversial opinion that will make you cringe, Si, later on. So, but there we are.
I look forward to it. I think
never done that before.
Maybe he just survived a week on canned peaches. He found somewhere something tofu, or maybe tofu.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but the rest of them are just kind of like angry red dude. That's basically what it is. It's like, it's a shame.
I believe the law says they are crimson lads.
Crimson lads.
Is that survival horror? Yes. Like, these people are surviving, they are horroring, they are murdering, you know, there's a lot of that happening.
Adam, how did you feel about the setup to Vendetta?
It's weird, man. Like, it's...
In one dream where Claire clearly had too much cheese beforehand and may or may not have sniffed a crowbar. Right? What?
Yeah, we didn't quite go into how terrible Ada's lines are in this. They're almost too cringe to be canon.
So we've actually kind of landed this at the perfect time, this sort of next section where I want to talk about the future of First Aid Spray, because we've sort of alluded to the length of time we've been going on and the fact that we've covered just a avalanche of Resident Evil material. And we're very lucky and thankful that Capcom have produced or, hired other people to produce so much that we've been able to do that. And it was always a thing of the beginning of the show where it was like, let's just not go through the games as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we're going to run out of steam really quickly. We need to meter these out and talk about, the books, the films, the comics, everything else in between, the viruses, the characters, even the box art, all bits and pieces like that. That said, we had a meeting recently because it's come to light that we are, in fact, now running out of topics. Of course, new stuff on the way, plenty of it. Again, very thankful to have a game, a movie, and a mobile game coming, and who knows what else, I guess. And there are still anniversary episodes to be done. Those have been good fun to go back and look at games we've covered previously, and we'll be definitely doing more of those. I guess overall what I'm saying is we've done really well to get this far, but there is only so much left. So there is going to be some changes to come to First Aid Spray. Not necessarily the format of each individual episode, because again, that's been the same since basically day one, and it seems to work. But the structure of the seasons, we've done 15 episodes a year for the last 6.5 years, 1 or 2 a month. That's probably not going to be sustainable as we rocket through these last few games and pieces of media that we haven't covered. That will really only give us another year or two, and then we will be kind of at the bottom of everything, looking around like the Tarantino meme, I guess. So that's going to have to change, and we've overall, for now, decided that the best approach might be to kind of halve the amount of episodes that we put out, and maybe put something out, 1 every 2 months or so, something like that. That doesn't mean there won't be other First Aid Spray content in those gaps. We talked for a long time about doing more with a moment of relief. There have been subjects that we wanted to talk about that just haven't, because scheduling is difficult. But if we're doing less main show episodes as part of this less rigid structure, we can afford to put out more moment of reliefs in those kind of other months as we go along. The other thing as well that we talked about doing, and I mentioned this maybe in the last episode or recently certainly, is that we wanted to do more YouTube stuff. With now That's What I Call Survival Horror and Tier Death going on hiatus when they did, and they are still on hiatus, not necessarily cancelled. But we have a YouTube channel. We've never really used it properly. So we talked about doing more on there, reactions videos, news and stuff like that, because we knew there was going to be new stuff announced eventually. And then, of course, as mentioned, that all happened a lot sooner than we expected. So we had to put all that into motion a lot quicker. And largely, it's gone quite well. So we'll be continuing to do those sort of breaking news videos in the sort of day or two after they occur when it comes to all of the upcoming Resident Evil projects and stuff like that. As well as, I kind of mentioned it, and it wasn't meant to be foreshadowing for this, but, my worries about, hey, we have a 100-episode podcast and everything else. It's going to be hard to bring people in when they just see, like this is going to be like 3 hours by the time we're done with this podcast at this rate. That's not exactly a new listener friendly. So we've been, as you'll have seen, chopping parts out of the podcast and putting them up, and to try and grow the audience, because growth is good. We've talked and thanked our existing audience a lot, and we'll continue to do that, and we all appreciate it very much. But there's nothing wrong with trying to get more new people in, so that's kind of an element of that as well. In terms of rewarding our existing and new audience, we've talked a little bit more about doing Patreon content. We've been pretty bad at it recently, which again is why our Patreon changed and kind of flattened down, because there is an expectation for how much you should be doing if people are sending you their money, and if we're not hitting that, we need to change things, and that's kind of the way that it went. But again, with the main show slimming down a little bit moving forward, it means we can do more Patreon content, and we'll talk to our Patreon about what exactly they want to see from it. Certainly get your opinions, whether that's more audio commentaries like we've done previously with Welcome to Raccoon City and Alien, or other things, more bonus podcasts, that kind of stuff. One thing that we do want to do is a bit of a Q&A series. We've battered this idea around for years, and it's probably about time that we did it. Sort of one-on-one conversations with each member of the panel, questions largely coming from our audience, to get to know everyone a little bit better and get to know their history in gaming and Resident Evil and just about them as a person. And I think I'm probably the first person, or I'll be early on, to sort of talk about that, and we can do that. And it's just a fun way for you guys to get to know how we got to where we are with gaming, with content creation. So yeah, we will have more Patreon content, and we want to make it so that we're engaging with you guys more and doing the kind of stuff that you want to see. And also, just a final point on, I guess this is a kind of housekeeping, is that we have a new t-shirt design. I probably should have announced this at the beginning of the episode, but no, you got to wait. But yes, we have a new t-shirt design, and it is the design that you'll have seen on the thumbnails for the podcast, which is a little piece of artwork that James worked on, working from the George Romero Resident Evil 2 commercial, or in fact, I think specifically some making of footage, where we tried our best to make it look like the RE2, well, Biohazard 2 artwork and Resident Evil 2 artwork in PAL, the sort of black design with the white skull. We thought it looked incredible, so we've put that out on the merchandise store. That is now live as you're listening to this podcast on the day that it goes out. Yes, and you can get that on shirts and hats and stickers and magnets and pin badges and all kinds of stuff, largely in dark colours because it's the only way that it works. But it's a really cool design. I really like it. We all really like it, and we hope you like it too. So to celebrate 100 episodes, new merchandise. I just want to take another moment to do some more thanks. We've had clips in here throughout the show from our guests, and we've not really talked about our guests too much. But First Aid Spray has a long-standing history with having guest panelists since the beginning. So I just want to go through and thank them all, frankly, because they gave us their time and their energy and their skill. And we're very grateful for that. These are just podcast guests. Obviously, there have been other people that we worked with in terms of file readings. That would take me a very long time to read every name that has been through here, because it's usually 2 or 3 people an episode or whatever. And also the guys that worked at Nerd Masons and so on that we work with on other projects. But I'm just going to go through the guests quickly. So thank you to Tony, our first 2-time guest, appeared in season 1. He was part of season 1 along with Berger and James, who became panelists. And then Tony returned, obviously, later on down the line to talk about the Nemesis book with us. So very thankful to have Tony appear on the show twice. One early get for us from the fighting game community, the late, great Broly Legs, which was a real treat, talking about Teppen of all things. So even back then we were talking about weird stuff, I guess. Ink Ribbon, the inevitable crossover between First Aid Spray and Ink Ribbon. We've had Stars Tyrant from the Resident Evil podcast, again a 2-time guest. Hope came on and we had a nerd out about Claire Redfield. The Oracle Dragon and George Trevor, both from the Crimson Head. Zed/Zane, who joined us for a bonus episode on Majora's Mask, which was a great time. Avalanche Reviews, aka Jared, who came onto the show to talk about Silent Hill. We also had Neptune from REP. Mike Martin, obviously a long-standing relationship with him here at the podcast. Part of Nerd Masons as well. October Keegan, the only guest who has come back to record her episode twice because we lost the file. I don't know if we've ever talked about that, but the Jill Valentine episode that had to be re-recorded. And bless her, she came back for another 2.5 hours. Sonny Bauer, obviously friend of the show. Carrier came in. That was a well overdue sort of guest appearance. AK Black and Red, Phil, which was just a wonderful time. Many of these we finish the podcast and go, can't wait to work with them again. And it's just a matter of making it work. And Phil, we intend on working with again, certainly. He just fit right in. Retina might be the most appearances from a guest because it became a bit of a running bit that he was on quiz episodes for a while and obviously got to be on a part of a normal episode as well. And then more recently we've had Rexy, Jen Von Lee, Romby from REP, almost collecting the entire set of REP hosts. We're nearly there. Aidan and Colin coming in to talk to us about Resident Evil fan games and mods. And most recently, Chaotic Claire. Again, friend of the show, long overdue. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking. I want to shout out our Patrons. Very specifically, I'm just going to go through everyone that has given any money to First Aid Spray. It has made a difference. I said it earlier, we have remained an ad-free show for almost the entirety, except the few sponsors that we got, which was a fun thing. That happened, by the way, but the fact that we've been able to remain ad-free is thanks to these people, and the fact that we've been able to keep the lights on, and the fact that we got to meet up, partially paid for by our Patreon supporters, and create that live in-person podcast. So thank you to Luigi, Nick Swain, Muzu Cthulhu, Dimitri Awesometh, The Mutant Man, Stefan Plakanika, Andrew Farmy, Zane Stemple, Walk Different, Dalton Smith, Richard G, Silik, K Lovechild, Jelly Sheep, Rage Quit, Shotgun Sinner, Ferdinand van der Haak, Ashley Wilson, Arkham, Barry, Cass Caton, James Fake, Something Valentine, Mike Martin, World War Phil, Taylor Bartlett, Happy Smelly, Daniel Miller, Richard Thomas, Them411, Chris Ortiz, Ghost Twisted, Residents of the Dead, JC Wesker, Maverick, Raphael Pacheco, Christopher Taylor, Wade Winston Wilson, Tabitha Dreadful, Zachary Maguire, Rainbow Knight Erison, Purified Drinking Water, Tobias Reaper 47, Victory Egg, Adam Matthews, Brian, Sean Meyer, Elliot Edward, Kix, Super Nintendo Chalmers, Legatron, Resident Xeno, Anon Persona, Carla Jabberley, Ryan Mosby, Ben Brooks, Stacey B, Climar, and Captain Rimmer. Thank you to all of you. I know it's a very long list, but I just wanted to do that as a moment of sort of sentimentality and appreciation for making First Aid Spray, able to continue. And of course, thank you to Steve, James, Kelsey, Jordan, Berger, Sherwin, and Adam for, being First Aid Spray with me. We're going to come to final thoughts, but here is one last clip. Show segment. It's a little bit longer than the others, but here's one more.
And it keeps hyping it up. It's like he's going to be here in 3 minutes. He's going to be here in 1 minute. He's 10 seconds away. He's at Chiswick Roundabout. He's coming. Don't you worry. He's on his way. And then he shows up. And I swear I had to actually stop walking.
The only person lower than them in the umbrella food chain is the guy who's responsible for health and safety at the laboratories. Because obviously that's the guy who's managed to have every single laboratory has then had a spillage and then exploded.
Obviously this episode features Lance Reddick doing his very first Wesker moment of sort of lauding his position over somebody in the principal's office.
Oh God, that was such
What a scene.
Which was, absolutely one of the best bits of the episode.
Yes. Like, he's dry bones. He's Waluigi. He's going to always turn up for a gig, and by God, he's going to be great at it. Yeah, no, it's pretty good.
Do you know how all three of you have divorced my friendship over the course of this podcast? Simply put.
Entering the planet, and John says, well, Leon asks, where is everyone, I think? And John says, maybe they're all playing bingo. Like, I had to put the book down. I was like, what?
Hashtag Underworld is canon.
Right, exactly. That's where Leon got that idea from.
When she's talking about how the air is almost like a water-like viscosity.
Viscosity.
Yeah, that word that Sai said that I'm rubbish at saying.
Just like to conclude his little firefight there, it ends with him firing a rocket at the monster's head that he calls Big Brother, and it doesn't leave a scratch. So he thinks, I'll run at it with a knife. Well, do you think that'll work? And yes, apparently it does.
Because we don't know anything about his previous life except for this. He has a rivalry with Nikolai.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I think Nikolai started it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Looks too professional. He wouldn't. Correction to what I said earlier. Glow in the Dark does not have voxels. I got confused. But it's also a very, very rubbish game in comparison. Did you know that Resident Evil was conceived as a spiritual successor to Sweet Home? Sorry, someone had to say it at some point.
I've called him Leon G. Kennedy. The G stands the G stands for golf.
Ooh. I, for one, am really excited and erect at the prospect. But
it takes you out of the game so much because you can't help but think Leon is just standing there and just like Three Stooges style, just shaking his head around, going like, what are you doing?
I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to just kind of be devil's avocado with this, but
this is far from therapeutic.
Exactly. Perfect.
I just love that line so much.
Some say he's still flying that helicopter to this day.
I was going to say, also he fires a rocket while on a helicopter at something hanging off the same helicopter. Ark's pretty cool.
He is the true Giga Chad of
He really is. I really need Steve's evil Dr. Birkin laugh as my text tone or something, because that's glorious.
Sorry.
I'm your f***ing father. You'll do as you're f***ing told. It made me go, okay, all right, Dad, I'll do precisely what I'm told.
This is a great example of me of Capcom listening to the things that everyone was responding to about Village, but not just copy and pasting and being like, oh, we'll put two babies in.
Yeah.
That'd be so
I
funny.
mean, just
like
get MS Paint out and say, you don't need no mid-journey bollocks. Check this out. I'm an artiste. Look, it's even got his floofy hair. Who is it? Don't know. Probably Steve Birdside. Let's move on.
This is the thing. He is potentially a good bad guy because he's been locked up and, you know, experimented on. He's never experienced unlimited breadsticks. And, like, I'm...
Six podcasts later, the Resident Evil movie's going to be directed by a bucket of sand.
And as you said, Steve, Wesker may or may not be still alive. Who knows? Come back and listen to this in a couple of years after Resident Evil 5 Remake comes out and laugh at us.
God, no. Just let him die. Let him die.
Well, I'm probably reaching with that reference a little bit, but then again, Capcom put Elsa in one point in 2 Remake. Jesus, I'm getting my games mixed up. Fake fan.
Berger, how do you feel about RE2's story?
I have a controversial opinion, and
oh no.
Do I have an infected voice when I'm ill? I don't know.
I'm not feeling so well all of a sudden.
Oh, hello. Yes. I can't come to work today, sorry.
Because Chris was designed to have, quote, a thicker neck than his head and thick arms, inhumanly so, which more than anything is just funny.
I'm not trying to say that our internet is rubbish, listeners, but I'm going to be honest, it's a meme on our server that mine is terrible for a reason.
It's a meme on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's got that proper 2020 fast food limited menu type vibe to it. You know, your favourites may not be available today.
The breakfast menu's closed, stranger. You can only have what's on afterwards now.
Yeah. R.I.P. breakfast wrap. It ain't coming back.
The world of Biotower in Resident Evil, James.
Well, the world of Biotower.
I like the fact that we just got through 4 Resident Evil, and we finally get to a place where we're at Resident 5 and Evil.
You actually have to ask somebody else to say 5 as you're saying Resident Evil. Yeah.
As you get to the E, they have to shout 5.
Yeah, that's the only correct way to say it.
I know. I agree.
The baby agrees with me. Therefore, I am right.
I think Gold Edition is worth it purely to hear Maggie Robertson scream like a gremlin.
It is fun. Genuinely, every time I try and watch this movie, without fail, including this time, I have fallen asleep. Nothing else can. I should have put it on earlier today when I was trying to have a nap.
The amount of story she gave Wesker and Birkin, it was like I'm watching Pinky and the Brain. You know, that's what it felt like.
Or occasionally Jim, just for the giggle of it. My life is Jim.
My life is Jim.
Apparently a meme because of certain moments that happened in an Unbell playthrough.
Jim. Sorry, Steve.
No, it's fine.
I couldn't decide on a word here. Your troblems are over.
Where's the rocket launcher? Troblems. How has no one ever memed troblems before at this time? Troubles and problems? That's a severe case of the troblems.
All right. We've arrived at the end of episode 100. I guess then we're going to end this episode the way we end pretty much every episode, which is your final thoughts and conclusion on First Aid Spray's centennial. 6.5 plus years of podcasting, 100 main show episodes, and all the other stuff too. Jordan, your final take.
Yeah, it's been an absolute blast every time that I'm part of this podcast, all throughout the years, and I'm still excited for what's to come, especially sort of like as we enter what could be another new era of Resident Evil. So even, to be honest, even if we had this podcast sort of launch in a completely different time period, granted if there was Resident Evil games happening at that point, I think we always would have found some way of having fun with it. But obviously it's worked out so well that it's been in such a good period for the series, and also to be able to jump back to such a kind of like dense and a packed sort of back catalogue of the series as a whole, and to explore all of that. And even when I haven't been part of the show, it has been such a joy to kind of like, jump in and listen to episodes, especially any ones where I'm watching Tear Death Experience and I'm trying to kind of like reconcile with people's choices on where they rank things, and wishing there was a call-in feature on the show at once. But yeah, it has been excellent, and I have been so grateful to be part of it. So yeah, thank you, Si.
You're very welcome. Kelsey, final thoughts on First Aid Spray 100 episodes?
So, yeah, just bear with me. At the risk of repeating myself, but it is important to reiterate. I think everybody on this show, since I've been on it, every single panel member, along with members of the Discord, in one way or another, has said something, offered insight, perspective, context, which has enriched my love for Resident Evil, movies, books that we all share interests in as well, in ways that just I wouldn't have received, without those people and the words that they've said. So for me, it's being a part of First Aid Spray 100 episodes later and all the content we've done. It's not just broadened my knowledge and perspective of those things and these various art forms that I love and these pieces of media, but I think just through that, it helps evolve you as a person, just your personal view of the world, different people's different opinions, and it's just the community together has just given me so much. And we are, we're very much, panel and Discord, it feels like it is a close-knit community. Obviously, new people joining all the time. Everyone's welcome, but we're this close-knit community, but none of us are the same. We have all these shared experiences and interests, but everyone brings something unique. And I think, particularly with the panel, I wouldn't have it any other way. And there are a few people who aren't on the show tonight, but I've definitely, I've got so much praise for them as well. And I just say a few things. Adam, I know he's not been a regular on the show for a long time, but Adam is weirdly one of the first and voices that I associate with First Aid Spray that I still think of now when I think of those early episodes. He is such a prominent part of the show, and he's funny, and the things that he brought to the show, that was a large part of my introduction to this podcast. And his voice, is kind of burned into my mind and into my memory in such a positive way. And he brought so much. And I know he's been back on the show, more recently as well. And so despite him not being a regular, he's still very much a part of First Aid Spray. Burger, there is not I don't think there's enough praise that can be put upon Burger for the way that Burger stepped up with something like Itchy Painty. And then since then, Burger's contributions have been, what I think I've always felt incredibly, so kind of confident, honest and valuable, despite our disagreements on the story of Resident Evil 2. And Burger, they have an accent which makes us sound global, so that always helps. Sherwin, Sherwin, yes, I know you're not here, but you connect us to Resident Evil in ways that just brings a validity and kind of exclusive appeal to this show, which I'm sure many other podcasts and channels out there would die for. And Sherwin has created things that many of us could only dream of, and his unrelenting dismissal of anything after the original games is something that I just never want him to change. He is an absolute totem of the show. And Jordan, it's funny because both you and Steve have talked about how you sound, earlier in this episode, and it's ironic because I think you both have objectively the best voices on the show, from a phonics point of view, and you have this incredible talent of somehow you're able to riff on a topic for a few minutes, and yet you always bring this, whatever the topic is, it's like an eloquence of something closer to some kind of professor in the world of video games. And I think despite, arguments from other people, I think sometimes it's quite clear that you're probably the smartest person on the panel. So, with your voice and your wisdom that you bring to the show, it's just something I massively appreciate. James, your commitment to deep diving on stories, your bold theories, yes, bold. You bring even the most, incredulous deniers round, and I think that is a talent that is unmatched. I still don't know how you haven't got your own sub-series focused just on lore and storytelling, because you were definitely born to talk about that aspect of stuff. And I think when it comes to the big episodes, you make our jobs easier because you kind of take the reins, and it's not my strong point. And you bring so much. You bring so much to the show, but I thought it was important to recognise that, yes, there have been many times where I think you've left everybody, with lots to think about when it comes to story. Steve, there is no denying it. Everyone here knows it. Anyone who's listened to the show knows it. You are everyone's favourite member of First Aid Spray.
Yep.
And
no, it's true.
Your impeccable knowledge of the franchise that outclasses all of us would be impressive enough if it weren't for the fact that you are just a brilliant and kind and wonderful human. And your commitment to the show, also unmatched. And you come with a voice that gives us a signature sound. And I never want to hear any more talk about imposter syndrome, because you've proved yourself time and time again, Steve. And yes, I'm very grateful to have spent many episodes sharing the panel with you. And Sai, of course, Steve might be everyone's favourite member, but we all know that you are the most important member of First Aid Spray. Sherwin is this totem that I've talked about. You are, without sounding reductive, you are this pillar of support for everybody else on the show that has persisted, and it just wouldn't be here without you. You have enabled all of us to express ourselves, and with no pressure, with no enforced obligation upon anyone. And the fact that you've been able to do that for so long, for so many episodes, so calmly, is an achievement and a talent. It's not something that I've seen anyone do in my professional life, in my fun content creating life. And I think your devotion to what First Aid Spray is today is, it needs to be studied, because none of us would be here talking if it wasn't for all the hard work you do that often goes unseen. So thank you for everything you do.
They grew me in a lab.
Yeah. And quirks and all. Yeah. So
thanks.
That was, that's it really. Just, I wanted to make sure that everybody got their recognition, because you're all fantastic. And, we may not be for everyone. I'm not for everyone. I know I can be annoying, but we're all here together. I wouldn't have it any other way. And the show has allowed me to be braver and branch out and do other things as well. So I'm just so thankful for that. And to be given the trust to speak on a platform like First Aid Spray is, it is a privilege. So thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you. James, you're next.
Thanks, Kels. Yeah.
No worries.
First of all, First Aid Spray wouldn't be what it is without the community we've meticulously built. So thank you all for sticking with us and trusting us with your time. Also, I want to reinforce what Kels has said as well. Sai, thank you for everything you do, all the hard work you put into organizing and making all of us feel comfy. Your validation for ideas and our comfort as a team is so rare, and I'm always in awe at how you make all this work. And thank you to the entire team over the last 7 years. First Aid Spray, it's for those who know me personally and intimately, know how important what I say next is. It is my home base, somewhere I feel the safest. I've learnt an incredible amount during my time here. Both in and out of the creation space of this channel and us being friends. And I'm always going to be excited when looking to the horizon with all of you here. And I love you.
Steve.
See, I didn't prepare a speech. This is going to seem very awkward, but I will say that it has been a pleasure, an honor to be a part of this. And I would agree entirely with the assessment of James saying this is a home for a lot of Resident Evil fans. And if anything, I'll be forever grateful for the opportunity to have conversations with like-minded good fellows, friends, and some I consider my family. It's hard to kind of pass the words, but Sai, Jordan, Sherwin, Adam, Berger, James, and Kels. You all really make me feel very welcome. And, especially, cheeky praise aside of saying, like, I'm the favourite character. I ain't nobody's favourite. I'm that clown who shows up who you expect to be a clown. I'm Adam Davies on QI, Yeah.
Don't worry, guys. I'll slap him up the side of the head and I'll go down the next.
But to be able to talk about Resident Evil at length for 3 hours on the regular about box art, can't beat it, okay? So thank you.
Just to add to that ongoing part of that conversation is, at one point, we genuinely talked about when 3D printing became a more common thing. We were like, wouldn't it be cool if we got 3D prints of the little chibi characters we used to use and we could give them away or sell them or do something with them? It's a cool, unique merch idea. And if we sold them all individually, or in fact, if we sold T-shirts with the chibis on individually, which I'm certain was part of the conversation at one point, what's the point? You might as well just sell a Steve one. That's the one people want to buy. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with that, to give Steve that platform, to give all of you that platform. You've all been very kind over the years to me with your time and with your words tonight. Yes, thank you to you all, and thank you to all of our listeners. And, we, in the description of every show and at the beginning of every show, First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. I think First Aid Spray being a Resident Evil show is the surface level of all of this, and I think that's something that everyone can relate to. When you've met people through a creative endeavor or a hobby, and you find people that, as everyone has said, like, oh, this is special, and you hold on to this. The creative endeavor might, fizzle out, as many do, or maybe you just lose time for the hobby, but you don't always lose time for the people. Sometimes you keep those people around. And there's the iceberg meme, and it's not a big thing. It was a thing a few years ago or whatever. Probably older than that now, frankly. I mean, if you don't know what it is, it's there's an image of an iceberg, and I think the original intent of the image is to show you that, yes, it's a big clump of ice above the water, and that's dangerous, but it's actually way worse because it could go so far down under the water and be this giant behemoth of ice. That's what the original intent of the image is, but of course, from a meme perspective, people use it as, here's the surface level of something, and here's all the stuff that you don't know about it or you didn't consider. And you see it with pieces of media, here's the Sonic the Hedgehog iceberg, where it's a bunch of games at the top. Underneath, you got all this fan art of people kissing, for example. Weird example to use in a sentimental moment, I know. But and the First Aid Spray iceberg meme, doing a Resident Evil podcast, is the surface level, because underneath that we have the Discord server, the community. We've, the friends that we've made there, and the friends that I've been delighted to see people make with each other because of that space. The memes, the stupid gags, the Discord streams, the stuff that isn't streams, and we're just hanging out, gaming together. And all of my best friends. Okay, I think, it's so fun to think about where we were 6 or 7 years ago when some of you obviously weren't here, weren't part of the show yet. Some of you were guests. Some of you have been here since episode 1, but you didn't know each other all that well. This is a lot harder than I thought.
Thank you, Sai.
I'll save this in the edit, don't worry. But I don't see a world where I don't know you all for another 7 years or another 10 years. I'm so excited to talk about Resident Evil, video games, life, whatever. We're all in our 30s, maybe some of us are in our 40s now, I won't tell you who, and some of us are fastly approaching that. And we're going to be doing this, whether it's first stage spray or otherwise, just in our 40s, in our 50s, whatever. I'm very happy that this is a home for people, because I get to share it with you. Whew. Okay, that'll do, I think. Well, nothing else remains for me but to thank the panel, our contributors, and our community. Join us on the First Aid Spray Discord server to hear the show early and check out our merch store or our Patreon to support the show. Don't forget that these and our social media links can be found at faspraypod.com. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all good podcasting apps. And if you like what you hear, please do leave us a review where you can and spread the good word. Our next episode, all the fun stops. We will, of course, be beginning our long-awaited coverage of Resident Evil 6. Thank you to the panel. You can follow all of the Pueblo people on social media. I think we're all on Blue Sky now. I'm at Cy White. Steve is at FB Steve. James is at Moist Owler OFF. Berger is at Biblically Correct. KDB is at KDB_init. Jordan is at Serialbox64. Showin is not on Blue Sky, but we love your show and I love you all. Finally, thank you for listening and have a good week. I feel like I say that or the reverse of that at the beginning of every podcast.
Make sure you say
the temperature of my room every time.
Yeah, you have to. Tell us when you're just right, when that day comes. Just right.
The Goldilocks episode, that'll be.
If you're really in it for some merchant talk, you're going to get it. Merchant is practically doing his own podcast. While you're shopping,
I'd listen.
He's got something to say.
Like when I played it, when Steve played it in front of me because I'm terrified of tank controls, right? But
you can do it, James.
Maybe one
coming
day.
to a live stream near you, I make James play Code Veronica.
That is a catchphrase in our group at this point, is shaking your fist into the sky and going, show in, whenever something goes wrong. I just wanted to... So that's fine. Apparently that's a universal thing.
I will open the floor because I feel like I'm going to rant for another 3 hours. Wait, no, the chat's pointed out the best character, the RE7 staple, the celebrity, the bolt cutters. Yeah, exactly.
Which James has an actual pair of in real life, as it turns out, and we just found this out. He has the actual bolt cutters. All praise Evgeny. We now have the trifecta of Barrys, basically. American Barry, Italian Barry in Parker, and now we have Russian Barry as well. So, thank you for that, Capcom.
Hello, and welcome to Mansfield 103.2. News for you. And now the latest with...
It's f***ing windy!
Exactly.
I love that little guy.
Check.
I think I literally have that GIF saved on my desktop right now. Because it has been windy.
I actually sat there chatting to these guys well into kind of like stupid in the morning about one of the release parties, just going, hey, let's talk about Resident Evil, just talking about save room music. Literally that for an hour and a half.
I love that. And it became a little bit of a campaign of sorts. The Kickstarter comments. Indeed, filled up with some sort of weird cult of people typing #praise the mob.
It's not weird. It's not weird.
Isn't it really nice that we got more than just zombies and a liquor, which is usually about as far as you get? You know.
#praise the grub digger.
I really like Mercenaries mode. I played the mercenary mode when Village came out quite a lot. I have this weird...
You must carry a large bass fish with you. You can only heal with fish. And we nicknamed it the John West Run. If you fancy giving it a go.
Sorry, I need to say it right. As per the Discord server memes, do I need to say victory egg?
Yes, you do.
The RE engine top is out in full force and it's everywhere.
This might be the tarpiest game so far.
It's the Acme products of Resident Evil.
Absolute game. Let's just go ahead and watch RoboCop, y'all.
I don't know what to do with it. Just sit on it for a year, Johnny. Thanks, Johnny Capcom.
After someone with really heavy boots 2 streets away, we hear him, and me and James don't want to go anywhere but sit down in a dark corner because the game is resonating outside into the real world, and Mr. X is here to kill us.
Thank you to the panel. You can follow us all in the village. Thank you to you can follow us all in the village.
Pueblo.
Thanks,
Follow
Alan.
us all in the Pueblo.
The Pueblo people. Thank you to the panel. You can. This is going off the rails.
So yeah, that's cool. Thank you very much for having me, guys.
That's all right.
It's nice to get to know you guys.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Hopefully we'll do it again.
I'm sure we will. Right. Thanks, Steve.
Cool.
Well, thank you for letting me have a part of this.
No, of course.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Said you guys were the ideal candidates. You all did me proud. So happy times. So yeah, I'll edit it and then we'll plan from there and see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I'm gonna get going.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
Catch you guys later. Bye.
Have a good one. See ya.